All right, chat. Episode 7 on After Storm with tonight's guests, right? Been waiting for a while to get them on. Uh, Simmons, Mafia, welcome both of you.
Hello,
Hello.
hello.
So let's just get going. Role play.
All right.
When did
Right
you
into it.
guys? When did you guys first look at role play? Were you viewers? Were you watching it on Twitch? What? I don't think anybody decides that they're gonna like start playing role play. There has to be like a trigger of some sort to get you to think, shit, that's something that I want to try.
You want me to go first? You want it, Simmons?
No, no. What? Look, whoever speaks up first goes.
Go ahead, Mafia. You got this one.
I was top tier cringe, I guess. Me and my buddy used to have or play Vice City. We used to put two TVs beside each other and two PS2s. And essentially it was single player, right? But we would still role play like we were there with each other. So, I was that kind of role player at one point. But I think that's where I started. And then probably got into some text based stuff. Didn't last in that, wasn't my thing. And then shortly after moved into the 5M field. Where I was probably a shitlord at the beginning for sure.
Yeah.
I had my days of getting banned and abusing things and turning BMXs into Ferraris to sell for millions of dollars and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, got to the point where I tried Red M and things got a lot more serious. I think that was in 2020.
So was RP for you a COVID thing then? Because you're Canadian, right? So you guys had pretty solid lockdowns, right?
Yeah, we had about the same lockdowns as America. Like I said, I started way back prior to COVID, I suppose. But yeah, definitely with my time at home, I really dove into it, especially on the dev side too.
Do you remember? Do you remember your first time going into an RP server? Like, was there any jitters? Was there any sort of like, fuck, I gotta talk to people,
Oh
or
yeah, definitely. When it's a first time thing, it's very nerve wracking to get in there and start socializing with people. And like I said too, like back then, I was definitely not somebody that played a character. It would have been definitely like just me logging in and GTA Online with slight RP, learning how to do it. But I think that's
yeah?
how everybody comes into it for sure, right?
Uh, I've talked about this before where I think GTA 5 is good for somebody who maybe they watch it on Twitch, and GTA 5 sort of allows you to be yourself because you're just talking about normal everyday shit.
Yeah.
Whereas if you come into like Saint Denis and you're like, hey guys, did you see the latest episode on the TV of fucking Walking Dead? You're gonna get looked at. It's GTRP is easy to get into because there's nothing to learn, if that makes sense. You can just start talking to people.
On the same foot, it's also much easier to find yourself playing self inserts, and it's that's fine. Sometimes, but you gotta you gotta experiment with characters
Yeah,
and traits that you don't personally have. That's what makes a character a character.
I definitely think everyone's first character is very much like, this is me. It's and then Mafia. So I'm gonna assume that you were a Southside gangbanger whenever you first sort of started getting into GTA.
I was an Italian wannabe. I played a guy
Oh
named
no!
Freddie
Oh
Catinelli.
no!
Yeah.
We
Mafia Born says it all, right? I wanted to be the mafia style characters big time back then, but
the Canadian Mafia.
yeah. Yeah.
What was he like?
He was a wannabe for sure. He had slicked up hair. He was more like the Pauly D fucking Italian over the classic Italian.
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah.
I think that was probably around the era that Jersey Shore was actually big too, so it made sense.
Okay. And then you moved on to Red M. So how did you feel sort of moving to? I think the biggest thing between Red M and 5M for me, regardless of the RP, is the pace, right? Like
For sure.
in GTA, if you're in Toledo and we're all on the south side, if something goes wrong, we can be with you in like 3 minutes,
Yeah.
Where if you're in Tumbleweed and we're in Saint Denis, fuck, by the time someone gets a telegram, you grab a horse, like 20 minutes could go by, and that's probably quick nowadays.
Yeah, that and the lingo for sure. I think the hardest part for me would have been the switch over to the lingo and going to howdy and all that stuff, right? But yeah,
And then
the map changes and just the immersion, I think, is what pulled me into the Redem side a lot more.
yeah, And did you find the pace change to your liking, going to like the slower paced, more serious?
Once I got into it and had the experience of some other people that showed me the ropes and that, I fell in love with that style RP. It was just so much more immersive and intimate to be involved in a story that was like had meaning, you know what I mean, or a bigger purpose that like whether it touched the whole server or like a couple towns or whatever it may be, right? To just be a part of something like that felt way better than just, casually having random conversations around towns and stuff. So
Yeah. Do you remember the first RDR server you went to, or did you just
first one I went to was Old West. Shout out to Old West. And I stayed there for my entirety, pretty much. Other than one server I tried that was some like supernatural fucking vampire werewolf shit.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
please don't
interesting.
be getting any please don't be getting any ideas.
Yeah, no. But yeah, that's I started developing for that server eventually. Jed was actually funding it for me to be paid there to do that, and then eventually we were like, why the fuck are we doing this for this place? And then Goldrush started. So
What was
yeah.
your first RDR character then?
Billy O'Driscoll, which again I don't know how I managed to do that. It was a character name that this server I was on, Old West, did not ban me for, and yeah.
Was he the same Billy O'Driscoll from GTA, or did you, or from Red
Yeah,
here,
same one
or?
I played in Goldrush. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Simmons, what about you? You know, obviously we know you right more from the dev side of things, right? What was your RP journey?
To clarify, so are you talking about like how did I get into the style of RP, or
Yeah,
I mean, because I've been
in general.
I mean, it's interested me for a while. I've tried many flavors of it, like they're mostly MMOs with RP elements, right? So like Gmod when I was much younger, um, WoW, all those games that have those role play elements definitely shaped it. I started playing 5M with some friends in 2018, and hung around in that server for a long time, way too long. And to be honest with you, once I had left that server, I thought that I would never ever touch 5M again or any sort of like role play. And that's when I was invited to a Red M server, also OS, and that's kind of it. Not super elaborate there or anything, but yeah, I was once Goldrush started, I was invited by those same folks, and that's how I ended up here. So.
And again, for yourself, did you prefer that pacing of like the slowness and the scale of like RDR2 over GTA, or
I think that both it's hard for me to say. I like both of them. It's definitely preference. When you're spending long bouts in one or the other, but to be honest, if I had to choose, I'd probably pick Red Dead roleplay.
Yeah.
Over the 5M stuff. A lot of 5M is just it's very quick. I don't mind that every once in a while, but I mean, like, it's hard to keep up with everything that that needs to get done when there's 80,000 things going on. And like you said earlier, you can get from one side of the map to the other in 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave a whole lot of room for like organic RP when somebody could just pull up within a quarter of a second. Like, hey, what's up?
So for me, GTA almost seemed like you woke up, you got on radio, you found out what was happening, you went and grew a fuck ton of weed, you went and robbed the store, you got into a fucking shootout, then you're in Bolingbroke for 5 minutes, then you're back out, and then it's restock. Whereas like RDR, there's been times in Gold Rush where like I've planned to do like 2 or 3 things, and I've got one thing done because I've sat and like talked to somebody for an hour, or I've had to go travel here and back because I forgot. It's just getting a lot done in RDR is like 5 minutes work in GTA. It's
right.
It's good. It can be bad, but it's far better in my opinion.
It's just they're definitely two sides of the same coin. I feel like the people who want to be more like storytelling
Yeah.
or they're role playing from the position of trying to tell stories are going to be more likely to be Red M players than 5M players, and the people who want the fast action modern setting where they don't have to do as much research or change their voice, change their how they talk. I feel like that is definitely an allure of 5M for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I've always thought that like there's great role players on 5M, right? But like a high end 5M role player is like the storylines that they go for and stuff. It's like mid tier Red M compared to like the highest. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like detail, depth, emotion, right? Now the setting of Red M and RDR2 it plays a massive part in like I've been in some standoffs or some like mild torture scenes, right? And it's fucking nighttime. It's raining. There's a wolf pack down the hill howling. It's you don't get that anymore with GTA, right? Because GTA 5 compared to Red M after you've played RDR2, GTA 5 is sort of like a PS2 game nowadays, in my opinion.
Well,
Regardless.
it's important to like realize that we're talking about two entirely different games, and the way that these games were developed by Rockstar are in very many ways similar, but Red Dead is it, even in the single player it's a game that tells a story,
Yeah,
and it gives you the ability to make decisions how you want to play a character Arthur in the single player. uh, the bottom, like, not the bottom line, but like how Red Dead was built was to be like specifically a role-playing game that tells a good story. GTA did it as well. It's just it's modern. To a degree we see this crazy shit on the TV, all on the news and all
yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's kind of like, oh, it's like real life GTA. I'm sure we've all like said that, but like it's kind of true. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to disassociate and create better stories when you can't one for one say, oh yeah, I've experienced that in real life. I But I think that uh Red M has infinitely more like role playing aspects than five, or excuse me, GTA does. Red Dead does. It has way more uh mechanics and concepts that are role play oriented.
yeah. Like I've said that like some of the weirder characters on RDR, right? They would just not be accepted in the GTA sort of environment because in RDR you can play the like crazy hillbilly, right? Who fucking shits in their hand and like claps, right? And it's fine. It's just like that's just a weird hillbilly, right? But if you had something like that in GTA, you know, with the way the RP can be over there, that type of character mightn't be accepted. There's a lot more freedom
When you got
of random characterness.
Well, when you got 80,000 things going on and, limited time to do it all in, you're not able to give other characters the same amount of time in 5M that you would in Red M.
Yeah,
So like whereas in 5M, hobo that shits in his hand and claps, I'm not going to sit here and listen to this crackhead. I'm going to go make some money. But in Red M, that shit is, it's kind of like, well, I have nothing better to do but listen to this guy talk, so I'm going to sit here and interact with him.
yeah.
I think that's one of the big polarizing differences of the Red M and 5M for sure.
And then you touched on the single player. You guys have both played the single player, correct?
Mm.
I have not completed the single
Oh
player.
my
Red
god!
M.
Well, look, like
I've beat it twice.
I only completed it like 6 months ago. First time you tried it. With what you've played, then Mafia and Simmons, then you've obviously done it. Is there anything from the single player that you would like to bring to the RP side of things, but can't, or it's not there yet?
We talked
I
about the
feel like
wanted the way the wanted system works, like regional. But a lot of the stuff, even if we wanted to, probably is limited by the stupid one sync CFX shit.
Yeah.
Or how players decide to act when in the case of the wanted levels. We have every time that we go to add something, we have to sit there and think about how
It can be
first off how
abused.
how it can be abused, and how we can curve that all that while also like not taking away from the script, and what we're trying to do, because in a lot of cases it will.
Yeah.
And it's an unfortunate part of being a developer. um
Yeah, your first thought is, how is somebody gonna fucking scam their way around this in some way, shape, or form?
well, as a developer, that should be your first thought. Yes.
Like I can just picture
Yeah.
like so if I remember from the single player, the wanted thing is like, going between the territories, yeah? And then you would pop up your wanted level and whatever. You probably just find that somebody would find where that pixel is and not go past that point. And some
We've done it. Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of the cases for sure. I think the way that I just don't know if specifically how it worked in the in the single player would actually would work in any way in 1-to-1 in Red M, because
Yeah.
it was based off regions, and it was based off of towns, and you could go to the post office and just pay it off, I think, if I recall
Oh yeah,
correctly.
that's correct. Yeah. Telegram office guy. All
But
right.
we do try to stay faithful to, like, the mechanics that we implement. We try to make them feel like they could be a part of the
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 original
main
game or
game.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's always something that we're not trying to. We don't want it to be people to load into the server and be like, oh, this kind of feels like 5M almost.
Yeah.
you
Oh
know
yeah. No one wants that. No one wants that. Right.
yeah.
We'll come back to dev stuff in a minute. I just want to go back into some character stuff. Mafia. Obviously, like a lot of people are aware of the characters you've played over your years. Simmons. What about your characters? Because you guys have obviously been here since 1.0, because you made 1.0, right? What was your first sort of like go Simmons character wise once you started Goldrush?
Well, first character was Simmons,
What was he?
naturally. He was a lawman. I joined. So when I joined, the sheriff of Wesso at the time needed somebody that he trusted to be the undersheriff. I'm like, I'll come over and give it a shot. Up until the point I had not been a lawman in 5 minutes or Red M, but I had pretty extensive experience role playing as a cop in 5M. And after he had done his stint as the sheriff, I took over as a sheriff for about 8 months before becoming a marshal. And that's also roughly when I joined the team as a developer and didn't know anything. Um, uh, and a lot of my activity got like kind of like my in character activity took a huge hit from that, because I spent a lot of my time teaching myself how to develop in these languages that would be helpful for us to progress. And
Yeah.
I feel like that did happen successfely. but
100%.
but yeah, I haven't played a whole lot of different characters. I've played, I've done some one-off characters like seeking plots, and obviously I've had characters for staff events and all that, but I haven't had a whole lot of time to like really sit down and experiment with multiple characters,
Yeah.
and different aspects of mechanics, like the crim stuff. I, up until recently, wasn't doing anything with crim stuff at all, in character or out.
So you've always been a lawman then, like you said you came from cop and GTA. Has law always been like your preferred, I guess, play style?
Yeah, I think so. It's very it's easier to get, like, to have interactions with people as a lawman, because it's literally a part of the job.
Yeah.
So I'm able to, I was able to like have those interactions and build like like character relationships between, you know, with my character and other people a lot easier, you know, than otherwise. Um, Now 5M, I haven't, you know, recently and like last year when we did 4.0, right? Or was that 3?
4.3 or whatever the fuck it was.
4.3. I started playing, you know, Crim over there for really the first time. Like I had never touched, you know, any sort of criminal character, and that's fun. Um,
Well, here's a question for
most
that
things,
because I remember just to cut you off there. I remember my first time doing crime, right? And everyone's first time doing crime, and I don't know whether this is, you know, maybe because you're a dev and you know what's gonna. Did you get the adrenaline dump of like, what's that sound? You know, what's
yeah, it
that
makes
noise?
me absolutely tweak out.
Like, there's one thing that I love. I love that feeling, right? Because I still get the adrenaline, right? You know, you think something's gonna happen, but seeing other people do their first crimes, right? And they like, you know, they're like super, like you can tell they're tapping forward gently to like nudge the door open. They're doing a house robbery. They don't want to like wake the dog. You know,
I hate waiting, man. It is one of the worst things ever. Like waiting for somebody to run out of that, like a house robbery in 5M is one of the most tweak-inducing things that I think I've ever experienced.
yeah, because like the floors creak. There's the ambient sounds. Then there's a fucking wolf pack outside. Then the thunder kicks off, and then you're like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And then you like,
You're like,
is that is that a wild pack of horses or is that like Wesso come? Yeah, yeah.
Anybody who's ever done moonshine with me or anything like that knows that I instantly get like paranoid as it goes on. Every hour that we progress, I'm like just more paranoid. What was that? What's going on?
Yeah.
He goes, you hear it? You hear that? I'm like, no. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so your first crime sort of give you the like that little adrenaline buzz, and then the dump afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you know, it's definitely very interesting being on the other side of that. Um, because in a lot of senses I know how the law should react. So like it, you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
I just I know like what they're going to do if they were going to show up, because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
A lot of it it's like secondhand. So like it's, yeah, that's definitely the most nerve-wracking part of it all for sure.
Yeah. And then the best thing for me is whenever someone who's doing crime, whenever they get like jump scared and their character spins around because you know they've like pushed their mouse halfway across their desk. You know, you just tell they're freaking out. And then Mafia, we obviously know you from you know, a lot of criminal characters, right? But done much law? He died.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I was talking to my bong.
It's
So
almost
when
that
we
time,
opened the
too.
server, I was the head marshal. Actually, with the character that I made from that supernatural server, his name was Eldrick Vanderkane. I played the marshal for the first 3 months, and you know, typical mafia fashion, I can't manage as a fucking cop.
It's the report. It's the reports, right? It's doing the paperwork, isn't it?
It's not even the paperwork. It's just that me in the position I'm in, like even in 5M, every time I got on my cop, I just felt like I was an admin in character. I never felt in character because it was always just like the same questions I would almost get OOC, like, why is this not working? Somebody be like, hey, you know, sheriff, this ain't fucking working, or marshal, this ain't
Yeah.
working. It's like, fuck. It's just like, yeah, I never felt in character, so I've never stuck with it more than 3
I think
months,
that's
to be honest.
probably like every server owner's like, you know, Achilles heel, right?
I think I can relate to that now. Like you know, in hindsight, like I feel like that's a lot of my
Experience with it too now.
well, like you know, when I joined the team, and especially when I started, you know, doing work, whether that be with the Discord or you know, our scripts, you know, that's something that I experienced even with the launch of 4.0 Redem. I experienced that a lot. I get on and everybody be like, this isn't working, that isn't working. It's like, yeah, I know. I have about 3-page list to my left.
Yeah.
You know, so I definitely can relate to that. That's definitely a real feeling. because you feel like you can't actually role play because everybody's like, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, why is this not working, why is this not in yet, etc., etc. And that's human nature, but
It sort of spoils like what you guys, bottom line want to do. Like obviously, you're running the server, deving the server, but like you want to RP as well, right?
it takes us out of character. Right. It reminds us that we have a never-ending list of shit that we have to get done as soon as we exit the server. So what's the point of being in the server? We should just be working.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. It takes us out of character. That's what it does. It takes us out of character, and I'm sure other staff members can also relate to that as well. It's as soon as somebody comes up and asks those type of questions, that they wouldn't ask otherwise, it's well, I don't, it's like most of the time my reply would be, I don't know. Why are you asking me? But in the end, it does take us out of character pretty abruptly. And we realize that, oh, yeah, we have work to do. So
I guess it's a bit of a balance, right? Like you got to get like your guys' downtime as well, and actually like play and. Because
the one thing with me, like, and one of the reasons I like main criminal on that side too, or Civ, is that me being out there and actually doing all these activities or doing the grind and stuff is how I can actually see the balance that needs to happen too, right? Instead of just taking somebody's opinion on, hey, this is too much or this is not enough.
Yeah.
I actually go and do it or spend the time fishing or hunting or cooking and all this stuff, right? So that I can actually get a like in character feel for, okay, this is actually too much of a grind, or this needs to be up a bit.
I think I remember whenever you were playing, you had just got the 1800 club or something like that there, and you were streaming, and I remember there was something that you had to get. It might have been ice. And you're like, why the fuck is ice so hard? I just, or it must it was like really low yield or something like that there. But you were like, why the fuck is this the way it is?
Yeah. It's just stuff like that, right? Or there's lots of stuff. I'll be just like riding around somewhere and I'll see something, be like, oh, need to fucking note that down to fix. Or I'll actually just stop and just start doing it in the code, and people are like, you coming? I'm like, oh yeah, sorry.
I'm daydreaming here. So I came into Goldrush sort of like I was on NoPixel, right? One of the public servers on Green. They shut down Purple. Everyone from Purple flooded the Green. Green became fucked. You couldn't get on to blah 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 blah. Anyway, so I came into like mid end of 2.0. Didn't really do a lot. But what was 1.0 like then, RP wise for you guys? Because the server wasn't, the capacity wasn't there, right? It was like really low numbers.
We started at 80, I think, and then slowly worked up to 120-ish. It might have been 60 even on start, but
man, watching 1.0 take off was kind of nuts, to be honest.
Yeah, and we didn't have like nothing crazy script wise. It was really, really like RP oriented. That's what we tried to get back to with this go around, but people like
none of us had the same experience that we do now either. So like it was definitely a much more barren world.
Yeah.
In every aspect.
When it first started, like every fucking saloon had like the same item almost. They just RP'd it was something else. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like way back. So it was like way more involved with your actual imagination and you making role play out of stuff than relying on scripts and game mechanics. It was way better in my opinion in that regard.
I will say as a player, right, going like 3.0, yeah, it was very, I don't want to say MMO, but you know what I mean, right? The RP was there, but it was like mechanic. Mechanics are obviously still there in 4, but I feel like the RP with the mechanics is definitely up.
I'll be completely honest with you. I think 4.0 we missed the shot on a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff was a bit of a downgrade to some regard, like, and it's like 3.0 stuff that just simply didn't make the port over. Like some of the game board and stuff, for example, right? It was just like they didn't have the known poacher boards and they couldn't find people, and there wasn't a fucking hunting card UI when you showed the license, and it's just like simple shit like that we could have ported, but somehow didn't make it. So, bunch of little quality of life stuff like that we just need to tune up. Got left behind, but like you said, 3.0 was very like script mechanic, like MMO. There was always something to do, something to keep you busy, but it's very like you didn't have to rely on creating a story necessarily, right? To keep that going, you just had to go do a raid or go do whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just always something to do.
So back in 1.0, very basic, few mechanics or nothing really. Like, was there swamp herb or?
There was swamp herb and stuff, and we had like the crafting grid back then. So it was like that 3x3 table that you kind of had to just guess recipes, which a lot of people liked. And
Oh
some
yeah, the
people didn't
Minecraft
to this
table.
day. Yeah, exactly. So some people wanted that back, but other than that, like, stable scripts, all very basic. I don't think we had horse breeding back then. Definitely not, actually. I think we had training maybe, but it was just simply like stamina, right? Or that type of stuff. But yeah, everything was way basic back then.
See your chat saying they missed that table. I promise you, you don't.
No, I fucking
Yeah.
hated it whenever I sort of moved over from GTA. I was like, what
Your
the fuck is this?
yeah, your chat is saying that they like that table. You like the
A lot of
idea of
people
that
like
table.
a lot of people like
We
guessing it,
have
right? Because you could crack codes on
the
recipes, and then if you cracked them, you could sell that recipe, and nobody else knew them.
the
So
yes, but they're thinking about it like a player. That we have 1,500 recipes right now. Well,
yeah,
items right now,
that part, yes.
and there is a finite amount. Like this is something that we discussed at length. We don't just people might think that we just make decisions. We don't. One of the things I brought up when we were talking about the inventory in 3.0 was the crafting grid, the three by three crafting grid. I had me and the other developer at the time. We had created a concept for it to work, and that's what the crafting mat eventually became. It used to be a 3x3 grid,
Yeah.
but the issue that I knew we were going to run into was we did not have we would run out of ways to make something because the recipes have to be unique when you're talking about a grid style crafting system.
So it's not coming back, is what you're saying, Sim? That's executive decision, done.
I don't see how if we reintroduce it in a different way and it's not the main way to craft stuff, I'm sure it could remake, come back and make an appearance again. I just it won't work when we're talking about main crafting because we're not going to have enough, slots in the 3x3 grid
Yeah.
to, be able to make all those recipes.
So 1.1 or sorry 1.0. Do you guys remember like your favorite storyline from it, from your character's point of view, or some a story that you heard from 1.0? What was like a standout moment?
There
from
was,
back then?
I mean, back then I will say, gangs didn't turn shit into ticket wars. Which is fucking rare these days. Everything with gangs is just nobody can have a fucking conflict anymore. It just goes to tickets. But the Lucky Sevens back then, like Steel Lucky and Jeremiah Red and them, were top tier fucking gang RP. Just the way they presented themselves and went about their business was just really well done for the era, and you don't see it anymore. Some people have done it. I will say that. Like, I'm not knocking anybody else by any means. There's still a lot of good gang RP. It's just the first time I met Steel Lucky, I was brought to Braithwaite. This was on Billy O'Driscoll and Old West before we came to Goldrush. But I showed up to the field at Braithwaite. There's a carriage sitting there. There's two guards in front of the carriage and a man sitting in the carriage by himself, which was Mr. Benedetti or some shit. He was Steel Lucky's boss. There's like 5 guys working the field and then 2 other guys guarding the edge of the field. And like I rode up and was like, you know what I mean? I explained how I was new to Red M, and I was just like awestruck at like, what the fuck is this movie scene?
Yeah.
And like I got introduced to Steel and then brought into the wagon to meet Mr. Benedetti, who wanted me to work for him. And I was, like I said, just absolutely blown away at the like effort into the scene.
For just
And
a simple introduction almost.
Exactly, just a simple like, here's my boss, he wants to meet you, and like you don't see that anymore. At least I don't. Like I could be wrong, right? People don't stream the same either. Not everybody streams, so maybe this stuff happens behind doors where we don't have eyes to. But I just don't see that quite like that anymore. Which, like I said, was fucking amazing back then. And then those guys, like I said, then inspired. Like I started the Reckless North and was inspired by them, and then from there was other gangs that started. Like Sweets ran a gang too. Like they ran the Van Horn Saloon. It was called the Candy Shop, and like it was just a place. That's where you got cocaine. That's why it was called the Candy Shop. His name was Sweets, and it was crazy. They did it. It's just amazing RP. And again, you don't see that slow burn anymore. People just want to be like all-star Andes and make guns, make drugs, fucking do it all. So instead of just perfecting one thing.
Simmons, your favorite sort of like RP story moment from 1.0?
Dude, in all honesty, there is so many. It is so hard for me in my small, tiny brain to like pick out one because I've been here. I've been in the community for almost 5 years. Man, there's just so many different ones. Um,
You gotta
I
step.
might I might have to take a rain check on that question.
All right, all right. We'll circle back to that. So 1.0 lasted for how long before you guys decided, it's time for 2.0? How long was the
It's always been a full year.
yeah 2.0 comes around, and obviously I'm going to assume a big change, right?
2.0, yeah, it was a big change. A lot of more systems. I had a lot more people involved. And then, of course, we had that no pixel wave back in 2.0, which I think was the COVID time still too, wasn't it? Yeah. End of COVID, at least. Tail end of COVID.
Yeah, so 1.0 was at 1.0 I believe was our smallest like stretch of time. Maybe not. Maybe actually our
I think we
longest.
did a
It's
full year.
one or the
We
other.
went October to October, I think, each year. So
Well, yeah, I came in
other than this past year,
October.
we were fucking when we launched February. We're a few months behind this.
Yeah,
past
it was around. It was into December, January. So yeah, it was about a year, maybe more than.
And how was the transition, like, dev wise, going from 1 to 2? Because obviously, I'm assuming like you guys obviously know because you dev in this here, and I've been around long enough that I know that, like, Red M's held together with, like, cell tape and fucking spit.
Yeah, literally. But 1.0 to 2.0 was the same framework. So we were on Red EM RP back then. So that wasn't too bad. 2.0 to 3.0 was a full rewrite. Simmons and the other dev at the time pretty much wrote the RPX. Well, they did write the RPX framework from the ground up for our 3.0 server.
Yeah.
Which went really well, but it had its limitations too, right? It just meant that like literally everything for the server had to be written by us. Couldn't like buy scripts or invest in any sort of like outsourced stuff.
But
really,
that's good,
easily.
right? Because you guys then
sure.
you're full control of the narrative then,
For sure.
It
It's
is
good
and
when we
it
have
is
the
and isn't.
people to help with it, for sure. But,
Yeah.
But
this is where Simmons starts
take-
banging his head
take-
off the desk. He's just like,
well, no, this is the technical side of this answer. This question is, and I was staunch about staying with RPX while we were talking about what we were doing with 4.0. I said we should stay. And the argument that I do agree with is we have less accessible scripts, and that is good because it forces us to write our own stuff, which is always something that we prefer to do.
Yeah.
But when you have the entire community expecting that that the server with a 40 player queue and 240 max has colorways for the clothing like all the other VoRP shit servers, right? Plug and play dog shit servers, we had like that's an issue. So colorways luckily made it in because we were able to obtain the open source for it. If the developer of that script was not willing to work with us in that regard, then we probably wouldn't have seen colorways when we did.
right.
So that's a very good example of the limitations that
which
were
is
brought
colored
to
outfits for anybody who doesn't know in chat.
right. Yeah, it's how you can color the outfits because that was not a feature up until like last year around this time. So, yeah, it really limits us on what we are able to do and what we are able to get out content wise, especially when it's a big discovery like those colorways. And that discovery, like with anything in Red M, not a lot of people like to share that knowledge. There's very few people within the development community of just Red M in general that will share those big discoveries, or at least until they capitalize off of it. Of course, obviously.
Well, I guess
just,
this is a question I was going to ask later on, but I'm assuming like, obviously 5M is like it's the big boy. It's like has the developers. Red M is obviously a very much smaller pool, right? So I'm assuming the overall dev force is a lot smaller also. But if you like, is it almost like RP where if you found something, you would keep that shit for a while and then maybe let it out, or
Yeah, like
Uh,
that's how a lot of developers are. Like for example, even custom horses, right? There's some people that know how to do actual custom horses. Like you can make other new breeds or piece together horses with, the legs from a Shire on a Mustang body if they fit, or all sorts of morph stuff. But
someone's gonna ask for a donkey with Shire legs.
yeah, it's just like one of those things people don't share, right? That they'd rather sell you the script than share the knowledge.
a half fucking baked script that barely works to begin with, for the record. That's also another issue to buying scripts, and that's my argument against needing that. But again, like I said earlier, when there's an expectation that we have something and we don't, again, our reason is we can't. Our framework does not support the script, and we don't know how to do it. It's not like that's a reasonable answer, but not to the person hearing it.
So whenever someone in the suggestions is like, such and such server has whatever, right? The reason you can't bring it over is because of the framework
Well,
that Goldrush is on them mainly, or you'd have to like rewrite
not
everything.
anymore. Not anymore. When we
If it's
switched to
Vorp, a lot of Vorp
4.0,
stuff is
yeah,
there's a lot of Vorp stuff that's for Vorp only.
And that's like the go-to for Red M then, is it?
It's just like the biggest plug and play choice. That's
it's like QB Core for 5M essentially. Even like as far as accessibility is concerned, you can download the server resources, the server recipe for Vorp server. It will include like everything that you need to like have a basic Red M server. Like that includes statuses like food, drink, like metabolism,
Yeah.
all that shit. Stables are built into it. All of that. It's a plug and play server. Don't get me wrong. You can do great things with a Vorp setup, but it's a lot with it's a lot. It's like QB Core. It can be a lot of plug and play garbage.
Yeah.
you
And
just won't see
and
anything unique. Every other server can have what you
yeah,
have. Though.
right.
And then I'm assuming there's like there can be like conflict issues between certain plug and play things, right? Or
Yeah, if
It
it's not framework
depends.
compatible for sure.
Yeah, it really it depends. If we don't have open source and it doesn't support RSG, which is what we use, then it's not something that we cannot we physically are unable to get it to work with our server.
yeah. So then back to 2.0, because obviously now Simmons, you're gonna have to catch up here. Best or most thing that stood out the most from RP and 2.0 for you guys then? Because Mafia, you were playing still. You're a crim at this point, I'm assuming, right? Because you'd given up your
Yeah, I was
Marshall.
Yeah, 2.0 I played Thomas Donnelly, an Irish guy as well, but
You like your Irish characters, so you do.
I do. I mean, I used to not be able to do accents at all, and then once I tried it, I got into a few, and it makes me feel way more in character.
I
Like
got
even
two
now in
accents. It's this
5M, I
one
use like
and Southern.
yeah, in 5M right now, I use my normal voice kinda, and it's just like it feels fucking weird sometimes. I think people think I'm like talking to them like out of character, but it's like just the voice I'm using.
So 2.0 for Mafia for you. What's a standout sort of storyline from 2.0? Because everyone says 2.0 was like 3.0 was great, right? But everyone's like 2.0 is like the gold standard, right?
Yeah,
I
I
got
think
involved
everybody is
with
just nostalgic.
I got
Rose to
involved
the
with a bunch
glasses.
of the no pixel stuff with like the Irish and then the fucking Naughty and Rami crew. There was a really good scene when like I forget his name who got shot in the face in the park in Saint Denis. Fuck, can't think of it now. But 2.0 had its ups and downs for sure. A lot of good scenes, but
You're talking about when I popped that nerd right in his head. That's what you're talking about?
no, Rami. I think it was Rami that shot him or Naughty, one of them. But
Oh well, I shot one of them in a park as well.
Were you lost still
I
in
remember. Do
Simmons
you
and
remember? Do
2.0?
you remember? No. Well, I think I
you
did
were a
that
marshal, weren't you?
instance, but yeah. I do you remember that? Because I sent both you and Jed a clip of it because I knew damn well they were about to make a whole ordeal about it. I
I've definitely seen it, but I don't remember
oh
off the top of my head right now.
yeah. They were in that park in Saint Denis, and they were shooting the limbs off of people. So I ran up. I got their attention. I had my gun aimed at them. Told them to put their hands up, and they're like, "Well, why would we do that? Why do you want us to put our hands up?" I said, "This is your last chance," and he just wouldn't do it. So I popped him right in his fucking head. Yeah.
And that's the satisfying thing about RDR as well, right? Like, you know, whenever someone's head pops like a watermelon, it's beautiful, right? Limbs coming off, you know, the ragdoll.
I did that
Which
with
is
a
apparently
Navy.
going to be in GTA
No,
6.
Schofield. It better be.
Fucking right, it better be. Anyways.
So then 2.0, is there anything from 1.0 that didn't make it into 2.0 that you wish did? Or was everything sort of, you know,
would have been a pure upgrade.
yeah. And then
We got rid of a lot of scripts that just like it was definitely 1 to 2.0 and 2 to 3.0 are like we're basically completely just refreshed. Like it was 3.0 is a little bit on a whole nother like level, but 2.0 I believe Mafia. I wasn't working as a developer at the time, or at least Lua. I'm pretty sure he went through everything, and everything was redone as well.
Yeah, for 2.0, yeah.
And 2.0 brought out a bigger server, right, capacity wise.
Yeah, as CFX kept progressing with the one sync stuff, we kept up in it for sure. Yeah.
And the height of 2.0 was, am I right in saying 260?
I think we hit 265.
280, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if we hit 280.
Oh no, you're right. No, you're right. 265. That was the max. 270, one of the two, but I don't think it lasted long at 270. I think we pulled it back.
Any issues? I think we did it because of the just culling. But
it was horrible. It was unplayable. Pretty much everywhere you went, you were called. You couldn't see. There was issues, and this is all also at the same time while there's other issues that were were affecting. Do you remember that bug where it was called being ghosted? You remember that? We thought it was culling, but it was actually a component overload on characters. Like they had too many like attached components, and anytime that somebody would come into the scope or into the bubble of 32 players, they would literally just be Thanos snapped out of existence because the engine could not render or load them into that network like that scope because they had way too many components equipped on their character. So we were fighting not only calling but other issues that were similar and all that. And we've always wanted to have as many players into the server as we possibly could, but it's a balance because we also want the server to be playable, and there is definitely certain points where it is no longer actually functionally playable, or at least back then.
Because that's Red M's biggest issue, right? It's the fact that you can only have like, this limited amount of number of people, whereas like GTA, sure, you might get some like, well, we call it kiki face, right, where like some faces don't load and they got the default face, whatever, but you could have like the whole server in one area and it should be fine
for the most part. Red M's biggest issue is that CFX, and now the parent company of CFX, Rockstar, has all but abandoned it. They basically have to be bugged to do community pull requests to the GitHub, which, by the way, any sort of new feature that you see in Red M moving forward is not something that CFX developers did, and it's not something Rockstar did. That is all community driven. That is the only updates that we will receive moving forward. CFX has just all but abandoned it, and have since their acquisition.
Do you think we'll ever see a fix for culling, or is that just?
There's the collective
yes.
working on it, like a group of people that have taken it into their own hands.
I think that we will see an improvement, and I don't know if it will ever be fully fixed because these people are being paid like the collective collects donations. They pay the developers per job done. The issue with one sync and all of that is essentially a good portion of the the game's code has to be understood, which is hard to do when everything is encrypted and obfuscated.
Yeah.
So, and they also need a ton of people to help test that, because you cannot effectively create you know, quote, players unless there's somebody physically on a Redm client, you know, doing the testing with the
Yeah,
developer in
you can't
question.
just like throw a load of NPCs because it's not going to be the same thing, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother thing. And even if you like spawn, even if you have a computer that's good enough to run like 8 instances of Redm, that wouldn't be enough for the testing that they need to do. And you know, it's just that whole process is a mess. I don't know, like there's a lot of good like videos talking about like how CFX started and all that, and it goes over what they did when they were first developing OneSync for 5M. I mean, that the testing that they did is some of the largest scale testing that I've ever personally seen. Like close upwards of 15 to 200 or 2,000 people, excuse me, in one session testing the OneSync, and you know, they were fixing bugs real time through feedback from their players, or for the people that were testing rather. I think we will see an improvement. I don't know when.
Well,
I
do you,
don't
Firm
think we will
believer that
ever.
this is intentionally planned and abandoned, and there's a lot of videos on
Yeah,
that too. Don't want to
yeah.
expose that. Anyone had their hopes up, but it's 100% planned buyout of their competition by Rockstar. At the end of the day, right? They're going to
Yeah.
release Rome, which is Rockstar online
It'd be
multiplayer
like
environment
Roblox.
or something like that. Yeah, it's essentially they're going to turn what we have now into Rockstar owned, right? There'll be roleplay servers where you can buy shark cards and all sorts of fucking bullshit. So
That's
they'll turn it
how
into
you
a
will
pure
donate
fucking
to.
Rockstar money
Yeah,
system.
yeah, get
because they're
your
not
V
getting their
Bucks ready.
slice of the pie.
Yeah,
Well, no,
100%.
that's it.
It's going to go to.
Like that's exactly what it's going to be. You're going to
Yeah.
buy currency from Rockstar, and that's how you're going to be able to purchase things from these servers. Any sort of external gathering of any like donations, whatever you want to call them, will be non-existent. It will be against their TOS. And that will happen 1,000,000,000%. And just like what happened with GTA Online, they will create a black market, and it will probably not be great.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see.
And that's putting it mildly because yeah, I'm aware of Rockstar stuff as well.
It's just it's just a whole story about just total dilapidated incompetence. But yeah, I do think that we will see some improvement with calling. That's one of the biggest things that, you know, is being asked of the collective to work on. They have
A lot of shit
stated
they got to
that
get to first.
right, they're fixing their priority is fixing a lot of the other issues and missing features that the game has comparably to 5M, which is the smart direction to take.
Yeah.
There's no reason that you would polish the outside of, you would paint the outside of a moldy 1997, you know, vehicle when the inside needs work first. That's where everybody's going to be sitting, you know.
Yeah, true.
If they fix calling and not the 80,000 different types of crashes, there's going to be no point. That's going to exacerbate the issues. It's going to interrelate with what they're trying to achieve with OneSync, and ultimately it will take longer for OneSync to actually make any sort of progress.
So maybe some improvements to culling, but don't hold your breath.
I would expect it. Absolutely expect it.
Before GTA 6?
I think we should see some improvements to it before GTA 6.
I
don't think
before
we will have 5M level.
GTA 6.
PC GTA. Yeah, sorry, I
can agree with that.
should have clarified that. Yeah.
I don't know about next May, but
yeah, it's really floaty. Again, all the people who are in this collective that are working as, you know, developers and they are essentially maintaining the Redm fork of Redm, because CFX refuses to do it or has been told not to.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah.
And yeah, they yeah, it's they have their own jobs, their own lives. They're doing this part time. That's essentially what it is, part time work, because they don't get paid salary. They get paid by completion, and all that is off the donations that are made by the wider Reddit community.
Yeah. So we move on then to 3.0, which is this, like I said, I started mid end of 2, lived around roads, sort of had no fucking clue what I was doing, because obviously I was coming from GTA. Everything was different. There was no phone, right? You had the plan. Did I have enough food to get me from A to B? And, working things out with the Minecraft table. Um, how did you guys find internally going from 2 to 3? Like whether it was like, because obviously 3.0 was, different GI, right? There's a big change, right?
Yeah, 3.0 is our biggest change for sure, in my opinion.
It definitely was. I mean, pretty much anything that you interacted with in 3.0 was absolutely 100% written in house. I would be as confident to say that 85 to 90% of the scripts we had in 3.0 were written in house, somewhere in that realm. And everything was fresh, and it was a new take. It was our personal take on everything. None of it existed outside of our server. And it's for me, it was also when I became pretty competent in what I was doing at developing Lua scripts. Because up until that, we started working on 3.0, I wasn't that much of a Lua developer. I didn't really understand the language like I do now. So in that aspect, it helped me tremendously get way better at Lua. But internally, yeah, it was definitely a big thing, and I'm pretty sure we had been working on it for almost, it was probably 6 to 8 months before we made any sort of public announcement about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was definitely the longest like stretch of work that we've ever done. We were working probably 6 to 8 months, just 100% solely on 3.0 server and the server base.
And then the RP of 3.0 for yourselves. I'm assuming maybe like at this point, Simmons, you're more dev than player, or were you still trying? I guess. Like, what were you doing in 3.0 whenever you were able to RP?
Marshall, I was Marshall, which is the where all the good lawmen go to die, essentially. But yeah, I was mainly assisting with anything to do with the marshals, which the marshals were basically a hammer, in my opinion. In a lot of sense, they still are. They and Mafia mentioned it earlier. Him being the marshal and start of 1.0, the marshals were never intended to be this like entity that people like play 24/7. They were a driving RP force, and they appeared when they had to.
Yeah, they're almost a tool, because we had Delilah and Alan, and like the marshals are there to facilitate ESO and WESO on like, I don't, do I say mechanic side of things, like raids and like getting into stashes. Am I right in saying that? Like they're more of like the high end tool that come in to guide or, be the full stop for whatever needs to take place in the law side of things. Is that fair to say?
Was this for marshals?
Yeah.
Marshals were supposed to be, at the end of the day, they're supposed to be like the investigative side, like
the idea
Pinkertons.
was
they turned into babysitters.
Initially in 1.0, though, they were a tool, and they showed up when they needed to show up.
Yeah.
They were not like, there was I think a grand total of like 3 of you at the beginning of 1.0.
That's what I mean. That's when it was actually
many.
We did like investigative stuff and whatnot. Eventually, it just turned into like marshals rode around and made sure the fucking PDs were operating okay.
Well, I mean, and to a degree, that's kind of what they were doing. That was part of their job description then. It was, but they were more of, right. They were more of just a driving tool, and it allowed for the RP, the greater law and Crim RP to continue. Their purpose was literally to step in when needed, in whatever regard. They were never really meant to be what they are now. To be honest, it just kind of ended up that way. But
1.0,
that's what I was
2.0,
doing
and
in 3.0.
even 3.0. Like when I seen a white hat on my criminal and I was doing something illegal, I usually shit my pants. Eventually, that kind of faded away for some reason, but I don't know.
I do
Sure
think
if
in
it
3
had
point at
player
the start of
handlers.
3.0, I think like seeing a marshal was like, oh fuck, right? And then I do think
Yeah.
in general, like there was a disregard for law being law, right? Like oh it's just law, or it's just a marshal, right? I do think in 3.0 that did happen. Do you think that like the marshal's office could go back to that, where it's like, oh shit, the fucking marshals are here, my asshole's getting fucking raided, I'm gonna get pistol whipped in the cell?
I think it just takes like Jed fucking handled business when he was on his marshal. He was just like, you know what I mean? He was the type of guy that knew that if he had to, he'd take you out back and beat the fucking sense into you, like behind closed doors or wherever the fuck where he wasn't gonna get in trouble. But at the same time, he was very like PR, knew what to say if he needed to calm a situation down. So I think the role just needs to be filled by a guy like that. Virgil did a
It's a
very good job for the
combination.
years, but he was a hothead sometimes too. So
It's a combination for sure. It's definitely somebody that as experienced in that type of role needs to be in that type of role, but it's also a mindset of the greater community. I think that as much as we want to sit here and say 3.0 was amazing in a lot of aspects, it absolutely was, and it's second to none still, again, in a lot of aspects. But role play is not one of those aspects, at least in my opinion, especially towards the end.
Do you think, because a lot of I think all the marshals right now are like admin level, staff level, right? Is there the opportunity, do you think, for the like WESO ESO officer to go up the ranks and like show like
Probably
to be
not right
honest,
now, if you want my
I
honest
wanted
opinion.
I wanted to get rid of it for 4.0. And the problem that I've seen with the marshals the past 3 years almost is that every time there's a good fucking sheriff or good lawman in each department, they got pulled as a marshal. And then that department had to rebound or fucking have someone else fill it. And it's just like, why are we doing this? We just kept taking good cops from good roles just because, they should be a marshal now. When then now that fucking department had to suffer, right? It turned into a bad cycle, in my opinion.
would you then
Mafia hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say in regards to why not now. There's nobody, even if like everybody that is like even a half decent like cop, they or like lawmen, they need to be in law right now. Not the federal law. Not the marshals. They need to be a WESO deputy or ranked deputy or an ESO ranked deputy.
Yeah, we need
It,
strong
it
departments over, the marshals are the
correct.
marshals.
specialized units almost. You would you want
The problem with getting rid of the marshals, and it's why we ultimately didn't do it, was there was just so many things that there were so many systems that relied on the marshals to be around, like because over time that's just what naturally happened, right? We introduced new systems and not only just mechanical systems but rule sets and policies, procedures that required martial action. um and so that's yeah,
and then
that's
if
that's
you're
how it happened.
and then if you're law and the marshals aren't on, you're sort of hamstrung, right?
Well, that's not how it should be. And like Mafia said, they essentially became babysitters. When I was the sheriff between 1.0 and half of 2.0, I didn't need the marshals. I was running my office, and I was doing a good job without them. And as many good things as the marshal's office has brought to the community, I think Mafia shares it. This opinion, obviously, is I think that it's been ultimately detrimental to the law side of things, at least how it's currently set up.
And then what was your guys' opinion then of Crim? Because Mafia, you obviously played Crim in 3.0 for a little bit, right? You had a couple of characters going. No, you had Billy. Billy came back.
Mhm.
Got the fucking. How long did you have the Rhodes gunsmith before it got raided and shut down? full of drugs.
Probably a month or so. I forget.
How did you find playing Crim in 3.0?
It was good. Before I played him too, I actually started 3.0 on Arthur McCabe.
Yeah, yeah.
I ran the newspaper, which was pretty good. I enjoyed doing that actually until I turned it over. And then yeah, whatever went south with that, he got married and stuff, and I stopped playing him. And then yeah, I started Billy. I've always enjoyed Billy. He's a fun character to play. He's always kind of been an organized crime, like under the radar type guy. This go around though, being that we went back and I could bring him back or whatever. I kind of played him different at the start. He was kind of a roughneck at the start that kind of went into the fancier side as he got going. But yeah, once again, I always get busy with stuff. I think I got pulled back to the 5M side at the time, and Billy's story kind of just faded away. So seems to always be the case with me.
Do you think that a little bit of like server owner syndrome kicked in, where like, you know, yes, you were playing Billy O'Driscoll, but like all the other gangs or all the other crims that were maybe like focused on him were focused on him because, you know, well, it's Mafia.
I mean, I don't know. The 1900 Club is always popping. I did some stuff with some outlaw doctors that I think some other gangs picked up on in odd ways, but I don't know. Story went sideways.
Oh, whenever everybody was kidnapping doctors.
Bramwell's walked in the 1900 Club and told me I sell heroin or that I'm handing heroin out like candy. I was like, what? Yeah, it was yeah.
And then Simmons, like again, you were obviously I'm assuming like 90% dev at this point, right? Did you do much in 3 or?
I think 3 probably has the least amount of my like playtime overall, and you know, I mean, I think I nearly worked myself to death when I was developing 3.0. I mean, when the server launched and we had that horrific skin bug, I spent close to 3 days awake
the
trying
no
to
head thing?
resolve that issue. It was the no head, and then there was an issue where if you changed your skin tone, half of your body would be the wrong skin tone. And of course, and that was, I mean, I'm pretty, I got a lot of like, thick skin, that shit, all that, and it was a lot. Like I said, I was probably awake close to 56 hours trying to fix that problem. And when you spend so much time on a project, and it's very hard to find the energy to, at least for me, to find myself in character like immediately afterwards, and you know try to play a character after. And again, after spending 6 to 8 months developing it, I've seen it all. I know how the mechanics work, um and all that. It was very hard for me to go in character, and spend the free time that I had in character, when my job and you know my job and responsibility was to fixing bugs, implementing new content, and all of that. It's a lot. I guess what I'm saying is, when you spend 6 to 8 hours a day in a development server, it's very hard for me to go into the live server and role play.
Yeah, because again, I suppose for you guys at times, like, you know what's going to happen in this mechanic, you know what's coming around the corner, it's sure you can do a little bit of porn acting, but
it's definitely the lesser of the issue. For me, it was more so. It was more so I would spend from 11 a.m. every day to 7 p.m. fixing bugs, addressing issues, addressing tickets, updating the GitHub, making sure everything is synced together, because there was 4 of us at the start. So all that stuff has to, be synced so that we can work together effectively. So all of my time I was focused on developing, fixing, managing Redem. And when it came time around to go in character, well, it's like kind of like I have no energy for this, and I don't have any energy to deal with.
Yeah,
you know,
you're done for
shitters
the day.
and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah, I need to take a step back, and and I think that as much as it pains me to say that, it's also probably the better decision, because I think that would have imposed a lot more stress, and I think I would have been bleeding. I don't think that I would have been playing my character truly. I don't think I would have been pissed off, irritable, etc. And that's just, I don't want to go into character.
Yeah, so that's not a
And
good way to play. So it's not.
right. Well, we expect everybody else not to go in character and bleed. If I go in character and I'm bleeding, being irritable, like that's not okay to anybody that I interact with, because that affects their time. It affects how they perceive the server, and ultimately it's just ultimately I made the right decision. I to focus on the development and the code side for sure. I don't necessarily regret it, but it was just I just found myself um it was very hard for me to like make my way into character for 3.0. I
Yeah.
was spending all my time developing it. So
And then, so with 3.0, is there anything that you guys like put into 3.0 and thought, and then like down the line, it's like, why do we waste the time in this? Is there any mechanic that you thought, why do we do this? It was a waste of
Steve
time.
Jobs.
Steve Jobs, yeah.
There's been a lot of jobs over the years that I've set up for people, and then like a week later, they're like, "Oh, I realize how much work this is. I don't want to do it."
I think in 3.0, I had like some of the leftover planks from fixing the fence in Saint Denis. And then it got turned off because I think what everyone heard was somebody found out a way to like, there was supposed to be a cooldown or something, I don't know, but anyway, someone made like $700 in like 15 minutes by like spamming something, and it just got deleted or something like that.
It was a culmination of things. That was definitely a part of it. I'm sure people were exploiting it or trying to figure out ways to be honest. I mean, I think what ultimately ended the civilian jobs was nobody was doing anything fucking else. Yeah, there was like 18 electricians running around Blackwater,
Yeah,
jumping off
so
fucking rooftops. And it's like, well, this is not like, this seems like more like a fucking tycoon than a video, like, a role playing game with all these in
it was
depth.
an anthill, is what it was. People weren't role playing at all. That they were fixing a fence. They were just running there, doing it, and
Right.
running away. They weren't even saying anything to each other.
Yeah.
It's just that was not the goal. That was not what we were trying to achieve. That was not our vision, and that's why it ultimately was like removed. And it was, and at the time it was infuriating because we had just spent 6 to 8 months, like 3/4 of a year of our life of it,
Yeah.
working on this, everything built from the ground up. There's so many things that at the time that were new. They were new to explore, new mechanics, new spins on things, and people decided that they were going to spend their time not speaking to anybody, sprinting around towns, fixing things. And it was quote unquote fixing things. It was just like in getting paid. It was a money grind, and that's I'm sure, as anybody who has played in our server will tell you, is not what we're about. And as you know,
Yeah. And then, is there anything that you guys would maybe working on 3.0 that didn't make the cut, but you wish it had have got in, or like you ran out of time and then 4.0 was coming around? Anything that you sort of wish did get into 3.0 that didn't?
I think people really wanted was the gang turfs, but that never made it in 3.0.
Yeah, that would have
And
been
that's
kind of spicy. So it would have been.
yeah.
we have
other than that,
we have a lot of concepts, and we have sometimes they make it pretty far. The first thing that came to my mind when you asked that was I was spending a pretty decent amount of time in 3.0 trying to uh make a really cool like treasure hunter script, metal detecting, that type of thing. And it didn't make it. I still have it, and I still have the intentions of one day doing it. But it was supposed to be this system, like it would have hundreds of locations that it would randomly choose every storm, so it wasn't like repeated. You would actually have to go and look. You could upgrade your metal detector. You could change the light on your metal detector, like the color, all of that. Like, that's the first thing that I thought of personally. But the gang territories is definitely a better example because that is something that we had, I guess, advertised, shown off, and it just did not make its way into the system. And I would credit that, or I would credit that with reason why that happened was it's very hard because again, like I said earlier, we're trying to make this feel like the early late 1800s, and
Yeah.
it's hard to integrate a system like gang territories in this realm without it being like MMOE. I guess that's the best,
Yeah.
or 5ME. I'm sure that we have the gang territory script still floating around, and I'm absolutely positive that as me and Mafia take a look at the just all the scripts in the server and how we're going to redo the crim like progression path and all that, I'm sure that we will take a look at it and consider adding it back to some extent because it is a good idea.
Like
And it
the
allows
gang turf, you mean?
gang territories. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really want to spoil my plan, but
Mafia, you're the biggest leaker ever, ever.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
look,
that's why you do a
like,
good
like,
job.
like,
I see what you did here.
I remember the community meeting, right, going from 3 to 4, right, and you were like, fuck it. If I was Simmons, I'd be like, Mafia, what are you doing? You are
I'm
your
telling you, I
own worst
did.
leaker, right? No one can deny that.
He'll
Yeah,
tell you
so
that I've always insisted that we are given more time, and Mafia will, but at the same time, it gets to a point where it's like we have to release. We're going to. End
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
I'm like, okay, no more arguing. Got it.
yeah, I'll say it is coming back with the update. With everything that's happened, obviously we're gonna shit can the whole Mama's storyline. There's gonna be something that comes out with that, and someone that takes over. And then from there, it's gonna be 5ME in a way, unfortunately. But the way I'm gonna do it is there'll be like a board at your HQ if you get approved for whitelist gang, right? And from there, it's gonna bring up a UI that essentially you start all these other jobs from. It's like going to Mama, but it's at your gang hub, right? So from there, you'd be able to start the wagon missions or a raid or the power outage or whatever, right? It's just more of like a hub for your gang to do activities, and everything will be tied to that through the turf XP. I want to do an extortion system so that there's spots on the map that if you hold that spot, you can collect money from it, or maybe it's stuff to make drugs or whatever if it's a pharmacy. But it'll be all stuff like that that has somewhat of a king of the hill vibe that kind of creates conflict, which I get is a kind of a PvP 5ME quote unquote type thing. But at the end of the day, I think some people like that and enjoy that, especially the gangs. We
Yeah.
do, like I said, I talked about the Steel Lucky story and how we do like to see the slow burn RP and all that type of stuff. But end of the day, people do like fast moving conflict and to have shooty moments. So I think that a system like that would be good for that aspect. And
I think
get the gangs
This
going again.
creates organic competition. What we're trying to achieve with the rewrite of the criminal system is we're trying to create reasons for gangs to be at each other's throats so that there is organic conflict on top of what Mafia describes as king of the hill type stuff. Because when you're in a gang and you know that another gang is controlling a territory that you need to produce some sort of narcotic or some sort of, let's say, for example, let's just say dynamite. So it's one of the prerequisites for dynamite. That is not. I have no idea what we're implementing. So just I don't know if that's going to be the case. But Mafia has light bulbs going off right now. But you're going to want that for yourself, and that's going to create organic conflict. Our goal with gangs has always been to have that conflict, and the less buddy gangs we have, the better the server is. Generally, So that is ultimately our goal with the rewrite for the Crim stuff is, obviously improve the systems, uh, create new spins on these systems that are unique to Goldrush, and ultimately create organic Crim conflict, inner Crim conflict, and that's hopefully going to hopefully the system is a lot better, because that's our goal. We just want to rewrite it. We want it to far outshine what Mama's was. We want to build on top of those ideas and concepts, but we want to make it we just want it to be overall better in every way.
Yeah.
Just get back to like we talked about too, like our 3.0 server, even 2.0. Back in 2.0 was when, Goldrush was the leader in innovative shit in Redem, and I just want to get back to some of the systems being unique to us again, rather than, everybody knows the story with Chad and he's selling their fucking scripts and this and that and now, right? So we gotta freshen this bitch up, and that's the way it goes, man. So.
And chat just like that. That's how you get Mafia to leak things. Easy. It's so easy.
Yeah, I'm pretty transparent and blunt, but I don't think most people know that at this point.
Yeah.
We've never ever like necessarily kept things.
Hang on, hold on.
Time
Hold on.
everything is.
Give me 1 sec. This is an audio issue on my side. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Hold on. Sorry, chat. 1 second. Hold on. I got you guys muted a second. 1 second.
Absolutely. Check that script. I don't know much about it, to be honest. And I foresee a lot of issues with how they.
Yeah, we'll rewrite it. We're not gonna use the one that you made.
I'm telling you, it's not. I'm speaking for the chat. I'm telling you, it's not. And I warned. It was Chad working on it. I warned him of that, and that's likely why he eventually stopped developing it, because I don't know if he had other things come up or if he couldn't figure out a way around that, but yeah, for sure.
Hold on. Pause a second, guys. Just because this is a never gotta go XLR. Never gotta go XLR. Give me 1 second. Hold on. No, I have this issue where the crackle issue. Perfect. I gotta do a little turning off, turning on here. Hold on. All right, talk for me a second, guys. Sorry.
Testing check. 1 2.
Should be good, hopefully.
Okay.
This is where chat's
how we sound, chat.
Okay, we're good. Okay, boat houses, because I know. Look, I know somebody in particular.
Boat house.
Boat houses.
Houses. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody in particular, like a lot of people were like, "Oh, I want a boat and I want it out in the river so I can do my ERP." So what were we saying about boats? Sorry, go ahead.
That's great.
I was saying that it, one of the reason it didn't end up in the server is because the way that it was initially written, it just would spell a lot of issues, both on the mechanical side and technical side. The way that it worked, to my understanding, was the houseboats would be persistent at their location, regardless of the status of the player that owned it, so on or offline. And that sounds cool, and it is, but not when we are limited by the amount of objects that we have in the world at one time that are loaded. All of the objects that are on the ship included, are networked, which it has its own limit. The way that it was being approached was incorrect, and it would have ended up being removed anyways due to issues with people crashing and all of that. I have absolutely zero doubt in my mind. But I think just with everything else that's going on, and the statements that I've made publicly, we want to we want to improve quality of life, and we want to bring back, like Mafia said, we want to bring back the innovative, scripts, stuff that people don't have. So I would expect a flavor of some sort of the houseboats to return at some point for sure.
Okay. Well, that'll keep a lot of people happy. Now, what about? So we've a little leak there. This is nice about the gang stuff like there. Does that mean that in 3.0, a lot of stuff was locked behind whitelisted gangs, right, with the coin? Is something like that going to come back again where, like, I know you want people to make gangs, but I feel like 4.0, there's been a lot less big gangs and a lot more small crews. Are things going to go back to you've got to be in a whitelisted gang to do X? Or because one of the things about 4.0 has, nothing was hidden behind any locked doors. Does that make sense? Or is that something that's going to come back?
It's always hit or miss with that because, I mean, some people like that style and then others will fucking complain about it constantly. So,
We intend with the criminal stuff. In Mafia can correct me. We it's going to be tiered, and we
Yeah.
want there to be a sense of progression, like an actual sense of progression.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. So regardless of whether or not you're a whitelisted gang or a unwhitelisted gang, I would imagine there will still be things to do. Yes, there will be things that will be locked behind having a hideout, obviously, for this menu, but there will still be plenty of things for criminals to do, whitelisted or not.
Yeah.
Um, because that's a big part of progression. Getting quote whitelisted gang status is part of that progression, at least in my mind. And that's something we need to. That's something that we need to make sure that we have. We have stuff for unwhitelisted gangs to do to prove themselves to us on an OOC level that they're able to handle and manage the higher tier stuff, the more intricate stuff, the stuff that generally spurs drama and ticket wars between gangs, because that's ultimately what we want to eliminate. That's why there is a whitelisted, category of of gangs. It's we want to make sure that the people who are getting access to these things are, doing it for the right reasons, have stories, are trying to provide quality role play, and it's not just them playing a tycoon simulator, trying to get that bread.
Have you guys ever thought of the idea of, like, obviously we had Mama and we're going to be getting, whatever comes next. Ever thought about Law having their own sort of version of this here? I know you guys did give them some missions in 3, and then obviously, with the Mexican War and stuff like that there. Would something, come along for them to have something like that? Do you think that Law has, you know, Law is the reactionary force to whatever criminals do anyway, type of thing?
Uh, see, it's hard to implement that for Law because sometimes in some cases there truly isn't anything. Like sometimes there's truly nothing for them to do, and in other times there is. I would need to know in like what way. What are you trying to say? Are you trying to
I'm
ask
I'm
if we
I'm
will
trying
add
to
like
I get
missions and for
yeah
Law to
yeah
do?
because you did have a few in, like, in 3.0, right, where there
Are you
was
talking about
like,
like the governor's raid, but like for cops, kind of?
yeah, you know I guess, okay, the easiest way to say it is if the criminals had Mama in 3.0, right, Law has like Papa, right, he's like like the big dick fucking lawman who's got like this going on or whatever, and then it's an event around Law, right, or maybe something for the doctors, you know what I mean, not just limited to the criminal side of things.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure that we will absolutely do that. We've had Law events in the past. We used to do them quite regularly, just like we did the other events. They did happen. We did do them. Um, I I don't know necessarily about like scripts. I have never done any of like that type of like setting up for the scripts, NPCs, all that stuff. Sure, it's easy, but it's very complex and there's a lot of issues. because of the state of OneSync. It makes it very hard to actually do that. Mainly because of calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one sync shit is like that's like back when we played in the 32 pop server Old West stuff. I talked about it before one time, I forget where, but it used to be like a bank truck style thing that you'd be just hanging out in Saint Denis, and all of a sudden you'd hear like a thunder wagon just go by with like loaded with NPCs, and it was essentially like a wagon that you could just go attack. That was like a bank truck in 5M that was like loaded with loot, and due to the way OneSync is and limitations now, that can't even work the way it did back then.
Oh,
so.
so it was like a random spawn, like bank.
Yeah, like you would just
Okay.
hear a thunder wagon rip by, like loaded with NPCs, and be like, "What the fuck was that?" And if you chased it and
Yeah.
shot them down, it was an activity. So
Oh, something like that would actually just
yeah,
a
it was
random
fun.
event of like they're going from Saint Denis to like
Yeah,
Coulter or something. Yeah, they're loaded with gold bars or something.
Yeah.
With sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say what a lot of people don't understand about OneSync is it changes a lot about how the game engine networks objects and vehicles, NPCs, and as soon as you flip that on, it's using the new methods. And for instance, like wagons in the world, they're networked, meaning everybody can see them. But when you have OneSync on, they have a very hard time staying persistent, and even if they do stay persistent, they're likely all scuffed. I'm sure we've all seen wagons with no horses moving around.
Yeah.
That's because of OneSync.
Or-
That's something that you would not experience if we had OneSync turned off. It changes everything about how the game engine handles networked entities, and in the simplest of terms, it creates those issues because it's very poorly progressed at the moment.
Yeah. With where 4.0 is, right? Obviously, you guys have said like 1.0, 2.0. They've all been like year-long seasons, I guess, right? Do you see 4.0 being a longer season? If we're going to go to 5.0, or do you see like a 4.5? What sort of your plan for the longevity of 4.0?
you want the honest truth?
Yeah.
4.0 is cooked. I don't mean that in like a negative way. It's just with what happened. It's just we need a fresh start, and I said it before in the chat, and I didn't mean it in a rude way. It's just there's people that linger in this community that aren't here for any good reason. That it's just we're all adults here, right? And they should just move on, right? It's the best solution for everybody. I think the server needed what happened to happen. It happens every other year. It seems like we got like 7 or more stepchildren at this point. And yeah, like I said, it's just a fresh start that we need. I think we need new faces in, and like I said, those people just need to move on. There's greener grass somewhere, go lay in it. But as we said too, big plans. Simmons is fully on board to keep this place rocking with me. So, like
And
I said,
do you think that's going to be 5.0, or like I say, do you
I don't know about
do you think
5.0.
would you call it like 4.5 almost, or
Yeah, or some rendition of 4.0, right? Like we're gonna build on the 4.0 core systems, and then it'll just, like I said, we want to revamp everything so it feels like us and fresh and like unique to Goldrush again. So
I guess the more so answer where it will probably be more so like a 4.5. We've not really decided what we're calling it yet. All we know, what we know for a fact is that we're essentially going to be doing a mass audit on pretty much every single one of our scripts. We're going to address the ones that need immediate fixing and quality of life updates. Uh, and obviously remove the stuff that we're going to be rewriting, redoing, revamping. So, and before it all devolves into more questions, I'm sure they'll come. But are you wiping? We don't know. Probably not.
probably not. No, I don't think that needs to happen
Um,
necessarily.
yeah, we have. Like, it all depends on
I mean, we just really haven't discussed it, and we won't really know until we're there.
It might not
to be
even be
honest with
that
you.
style update either, right? It's like
Right.
we're just
It
gonna
could
update a lot of
it could just
things.
be like, you know, we've moved from a Thursday to a Friday type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. You
We
might just
haven't-
wake up one day and a content release drops with like, you know, new systems on criminal raids or whatever mama style stuff that we talked about and everything. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. Our
it's
goals are big.
it's not a yearly
and we
update type
don't.
thing. 100%.
Yeah.
We're not. I'm not going into that. We're not wiping. We're not doing. It's not that big.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
I'll say
we-
personally, thank fuck for that. You know.
Yeah. We're not
Yeah.
going that route.
Well,
we don't need.
we-
We don't need a
we
full
don't
wipe. We don't need a
wanna-
fresh start in that route. We just need things cleaned up and refreshed, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we don't necessarily know if we're going to call it what we're naming it, if we're even going to name it like Mafia says. Just know it's coming.
I'm sure Mafia will
Yeah.
leak something in a couple of weeks' time anyway. You know what he's like. So.
Probably. Trick questions.
Better him than me.
All right. Right, let's move on to something completely sort of, well, on topic but off topic. RP gaming as a whole, right? Mafia, you and I have talked randomly the odd time we've been streaming about, like, Cyberpunk. Like,
I was going to say, that's my next project. As soon as that's ready, you will 100% see a GRX fucking Cyberpunk server.
do you guys think, like, obviously you guys dev, right? But, like, how far away would you say, like, a 1.0 Cyberpunk,
Cyber MP is pretty close to release, but as far as what you can do in it, that would take time. Like, you know what I mean? They have everything together as far as like their one sync style thing where there's, you know, networked
Everything's
players and
networked, yeah.
vehicles and shooting and all that stuff. So the base framework or core systems would come out, and then me and Simmons or whoever would be on board would have to write all the, you know what I mean, shop scripts, fucking garage scripts, all that type of stuff. So
And there's no, and last time I checked on that project specifically, they were working on getting the scripting side in, like, which is what allows us to create, our own stuff in the Red M core. It's so I don't know. That was a couple months ago. They very well could have progressed into that, but last time that I had checked, they did not have external script support. So I would have, honestly, to give you a more accurate answer, I'd have to go check in with the project again.
Yeah.
But like Mafia says, as soon as it's available, it's definitely something that we are
It's on our
interested in
radar for
doing.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, we've always pretty much any game that allows us to do like these role play style like elements and all that, we have keen interest in.
Is there any
we've
other
tried
games
in the
that are out
past, all that?
Is there any other games out there that are like, you would like to see brought
We
into
had a
like
DayZ server and a Rust server at one point, but just
We've also
kept around.
talked very, very like little about Hogwarts Legacy. I'm not sure what state that game's
Yeah.
in at all.
Billy O'Driscoll
but they
goes to
also have
Hogwarts.
multiplayer. I mean, it's something that we considered. It was. It's
Yeah.
just it was.
It's I checked that out
too
like
much
2 months
too
ago.
yeah.
And like
Yeah.
night and day aren't even synced up with the other players or anything, so it's still
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't if we're going to spend our time expanding into another like sub game, and I say sub game because all these games are all mods, like the mod for Hogwarts Legacy, the mod for Cyberpunk, they're not supported by the main developers of the game. We don't have a lot of intention to start working on something that's kind of half baked.
Yeah.
Both Mafia and I have enough going on to create this half-baked server where it's very possible nobody will even show any interest. And at the end of the day, that's really all we want. We just want people playing and having fun.
And then I'm gonna ask, because everyone's gonna want to know anyway. Red Zed, dead or alive?
Both.
It's alive, but back burner essentially just because again one sync, right? So the main issue I'm stuck on right now is zombies, which I actually seen somebody dropped a zombie script, so I'll check that out. But again, it's once there's like 20 people in an area and the zombies start spawning, it gets to an overloaded state. So I either have to have no hordes and limit it to small amounts of zombies around at a time, or wait it out.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of the moral of every story with Red M is there's always some sort of limitation. It's very rarely it's very rarely our desire or lack of it.
Just culling destroys everything, right? Like every idea.
The problem is that culling that one thing affects, like I said earlier, it affects every aspect of the game, and it when there's an issue, it causes interrelated issues, and all those interrelated issues pile up, and you get issues like the item set pool, which causes and induces the camera bug, Play-Doh. Like all of that is interrelated and directly associated with one sync issues. 1,000,000%, and it is what will kill Red M ultimately if they don't get a grip and fix it.
So Cyberpunk's on the upcoming. Hogwarts Legacy, maybe. What about obviously the big one, PC release, GTA 6.
GTA 6, 100%. This is a calculated 5M release, so that the community's built up for that too.
Do you think that ultimately, do you think from the RP side of things, forget the online GTA 6 online stuff, do you think that Rockstar has it in them not to fucking drop the ball?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I think they're gonna design a lot of the core game with roleplay in mind this go around. They've seen now that how 5M has been kept alive, or GTA has been kept alive partially by the role players. So.
I would say the 5M side of things has been a massive chunk of the longevity of GTA 5, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I think even some of the DLCs they've dropped lately, from like the pizza delivery jobs and stuff on GTA Online, have been RP oriented. So I think they're gonna really do that in GTA 6. Especially with I've heard the San Andreas weight loss is back, right? Like where your character can actually get fat and skinny and stuff too if you work out. So that could be super cool for a roleplay aspect as well.
Yeah, you can actually shame some fat cunt and getting healthy again.
That's true. That'd be cool. I mean, I share the same opinion. I'm not a huge fan of Rockstar. I think, at least with how they handled the CFX acquisition and what they've done afterwards, they've put the most incompetent Rockstar employee they could find in charge of it, which also could be calculated. No idea.
Yeah.
I think that if they do it right, that I feel like it. I don't think it will ultimately matter how they do it. Actually, if they allow for community servers and they allow for Lua support, you will have roleplay servers. That's a given. People roleplay in Red Dead Online. That's pretty much all you can do. You can cheat and roleplay. That's about it. Did you play Starfield at all? This is leading somewhere, I promise.
Starfield? No, I didn't want to take a mortgage out to buy a package. So
fair enough. That game they failed because Bethesda did not release the mod toolkit for a whole year, and that's the same thing. If Rockstar is unable to deliver upon what the community expects, is just a standard expectation. They're going. It's not going to be great. And on the other foot of that, that's also, that's what I'm like. Bethesda has now realized that the only reason that people buy their games and that they're still a profitable company is because that you can go to the Nexus forum or Nexus Mods website and download pretty much any mod that you want for Skyrim, for example. And nobody is buying the 17th version of Skyrim to play it again for the 18th millionth time. They're buying it because there's so much content in it from third-party developers that it's become a part of the game. It would almost be Rockstar releasing the PC version of whatever of GTA 6 without community server support would be detrimental.
Yeah,
I don't think we're gonna,
because a lot of people probably don't know, but it's all going in house, right? It's all going in house with GTA 6. And my I'm not a dev or anything like that, but my worry is server A has the exact same shit as server B. You know, they're all copy pastes, right? You know, they've all bought like the fucking weed, the cocaine.
basic,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
the basic shit from
And
Rockstar.
and like you say, Simmons, if people like yourselves who dev, right? If you can't add your own flavor or flair, like every server's the same. There's no difference, right? Apart from the people that are on to a degree. But you know,
I think we're still gonna have the creative freedom to develop scripts, but I
Yeah.
think from what I've heard, they're gonna open this up a lot more to have like if you're a 3D developer, for example, and you make like interiors or clothing. I've heard rumors that you're gonna be able to actually like open a shop in the online world and then essentially sell your clothes for the V-Bucks or whatever that they sell, right? So I would go buy V-Bucks and then I could come to your online store to buy sweaters for my character that I spend the V-Bucks, that then essentially you get those V-Bucks as the creator to cash in as real money or a percentage of whatever Rockstar fucking gyps you for. But
probably a lot more than Steam's 30%, I would say. But
yeah.
Well, I also think that they're going to have you're going to have cross platform as well. I think that there will be I think that will be on a community
That'll be
level. I think that's
beneficial,
something
too.
that I think the servers will be able to decide whether or not they want consoles on
Oh,
playing on
true,
their
you might be
server.
right.
But because you got to think about this in the you know I legit think it's going to be a 1-to-1 like lookalike of like Roblox as far as like the intern like how everything works. Anything that you buy from their storefront, whether community made or official, V-Bucks, not
yeah,
V-Bucks, Robux. Um, and that's going to extend into paying for priority access to servers, or like in our case donations, like you donate to get priority access. And anything you buy from the servers must go through them, all of that. And I think that's going to generate one, a lot of revenue for them, and two, I think the inclusion of consoles into that is going to also just add on to that for sure. I Yeah, I would buy some Take Two Entertainment interactive stock very soon, to be honest.
yeah. So you think that console are going to be part of the RP community as well?
I think so,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so. The GTA 6 has way more ambitious things that they're doing than adding console crossplay. And I think in the world that we live in now and how much games, consoles, all of that has progressed in the last 10 years, I think it's almost an expectation of the gaming community that there's crossplay. Like I should be able to play with my brother on his PS5, for example. So yeah, I think we will see the inclusion of consoles to an extent. I don't think that they will, because just keys in general, that will just be a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Plus,
There's a lot of
Yeah,
shit going on crazy there's a lot of crazy shit going on in console world right now. Microsoft and Steam are partnering up for their next console. Steam
Ooh.
games will be obtained. Yeah, it's the whole new world of gaming is coming, and I think I do, as much as I can't stand Rockstar, I do think GTA 6 will 100% bring us into that new age of gaming. I think that everybody, no matter the console, will absolutely be able to play with each other, at least on official servers.
yeah, can't wait to get head tapped by someone with aim assist on their Xbox controller.
Yeah.
And then timeline, like I know it's like next year console, right? So 27 for PC, right? Because they'll do the year long wait, so like Microsoft and Sony get happy with their limited edition, or GTA
I think
6
another part
console.
of the reason for that too, though, right, is because like if they release to PC right away, like the modders will eat bugs up so fast before they can fix them, and the game will just get
Just
ruined so
dissect the
fast.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll just
I
they'll
think that's the main reason
dissect the
they wait a
game.
year for PC.
Do you think that with the console release that they'll have the RP servers on launch, or do you think that's a down the line thing for them?
I think they'll do
That's a
the
good
same thing
question,
in
but how the
GTA 5, where like they'll force you to do the story. There won't be no online for like the first 2 weeks, so that basically everybody has to touch the story that buys the game. Because I'm pretty sure that's how GTA 5 was, right? I don't think
it was
online came out
longer.
for the first month,
It was
maybe.
like 2 month or two before GTA 5.
Yeah, and even then, when that fucking dropped, that shit was buggy as hell, and like the level glitches and all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah, it would be even if they do something like that, it would be like if they allow role play. My question is who the fuck is developing them? Because I like me personally, I'm not buying 2 copies of GTA 6.
They'll probably
So
get me for 3. Fuck.
well, not me. But that said, like I mean, even if they release the role play servers and it's possible to like spin up your own servers, how the hell am I gonna how are we gonna really it'd be really hard to test that. It would be very hard to run the servers without any sort of PC client. It would be
True. I
in my
didn't even
mind, it would be near
think of that.
impossible.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. There, like if everything's in house and on their like launcher, like how do you run a test server? How do you test that?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It would be
It'd be
Rockstar
horrible.
scripts that you wouldn't have to test. It'd
Yeah.
be a
Right.
console, I would imagine, or you'd have to have some sort of console on a PC that you log into to like flip shit or edit shit or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
imagine
you're right. It would
be
be
an
weird
absolute
to,
atrocity.
yeah, it'd be weird to have that on a platform and try to be fucking editing code or doing anything like that on it.
Do you?
They will have official servers. I think they will, and what I mean by official is I think their official servers will basically essentially be online,
Yeah.
and then you might have some flavor servers like I don't know TDM that they might have spun up. They might. I don't think that we're. I do not foresee us having community servers until the PC version come out. I really
Yeah.
don't.
Do,
Definitely not.
do you think that if it does go tits up and it's not handled correctly, that we see some version of like 6M and it goes back to square one where Rockstar hits? Remember Rockstar was trying to get all like 5M taken down, and there was the whole legal shit of like this is our IP.
So
Do you think that could happen? I'm sure it would, right? There's
It would be a
nothing
very,
more angry
very,
than
very
developers.
well. It'd
this
be
is
a
already
very dumb
happening.
move on their part.
There's already it's a project called YAMP. It's called Yet Another M Project, and it's literally people that are mad at 5M that are now branching off again to start their own fucking thing exactly like 5M. So I could
M-Star
almost,
platform.
or something like that. I could almost guarantee that somebody will try to do it with GTA 6, but now that Rockstar's bought out CFX, I mean, they'll probably crack down way harder on anyone that tries to get their fucking foot in the door in this type of thing. So.
You see, and I definitely think that's a possibility. These companies, these corporations, it's not even Rockstar because when we're talking about legal action, we're talking about Rockstar's parent company, Take-Two.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they're
they won't fuck around. It's like COD now. Have you heard about
those
COD's shut down Zen? They send out cease and desist to those fucking Zen creators that are making these controller things now.
well, see, that's me personally. That's in my opinion, that's one of the most mind-boggling fucking things ever. Because if, as I mentioned earlier with Skyrim, like these third-party developers, content creators are what keep these games alive and keep these fucking shitty companies profitable. And the companies that will lean into that will become the profitable companies, and they will be the ones that remain in the industry, and the ones that don't will be left in the dust. I really do believe that companies that don't want to play ball with third party modifications and people doing their own things in it, I think that we're going to be hard pressed to see them in 20 years, find them. I don't think that they're going to be major companies. And with Rockstar acquiring CFX, they've already eliminated 99% of their competition when it comes to the income that CFX is generating.
Yeah.
I mean, CFX was purchased by Take-Two for a fraction of what it made that year. So I don't think that they're actually going to send cease and desist out. I don't think that they're going to be heavy on that. Me personally, I think that they're going to focus on, or this is what they should do. They should focus on creating the best product that they possibly can, both in the sense of GTA 6 and all the online things that will be connected to it, roleplay, game servers like TDM, capture flag, racing, all of that shit. Like they're going to be so busy with that type of stuff. I don't foresee them sending cease and desist to a project that has 5,000 people in it max. I just don't think that they're going to do that. It's not something that I would worry about personally. I don't think that they're going to be doing much legal action. Why would they?
Pick and choose
They
at this
have-
point
they-
anyways. Look at the fucking 90 server, right? I shut down our Liberty project because of the TOS,
Yeah.
but yet the 90 server's been up for 2 years with no fucking issues. It's
Yeah.
crock of shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about the legality behind people spinning up their own versions of it. I think that you will see. I think that the only time that they will pursue legal action is if it's in regards to their new game. I don't think that they will be shutting down 5M servers. I don't think that they'll be shutting down Redm servers. That they have stated internally, there's a whole website. It takes like 4 days to read if you're interested. But they've stated internally that they will not be shutting down 5M or Redm unless people stop playing.
Yeah.
So, and and again, that could all change with all the corporate bullshit, and it very likely will. But I don't foresee it right now.
Yeah.
Unless
The hope is
GTA 6.
the hope is that it doesn't, right? Until some like intern goes, oh, I can make us an extra $1 million by shutting down, biggest hopes for GTA 6, like game wise, like obviously Mafia's looking forward to getting some thick female models, making them skinny or whatever, or vice versa. Any sort of
you gotta have the jiggle.
anything that you're looking forward to being in GTA 6, like different?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm really looking forward to the wildlife side. I think that walking through the swamps or the bayou or whatever you want to call it in Florida or Vice City is going to be essentially like walking through the swamps in Saint Denis there, or north of Saint Denis.
Yeah.
From the gators to the cougars to everything. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do at that side. If there's going to be like a hunting system or all that type of stuff. Fishing. I wonder if they'll have like well, actually in the trailer it looked like there's fishing obviously, but I wonder if it'll be like the Red M style. Or Red Dead style, I should say.
Simmons, anything for you that you sort of like? I hope GTA 6 has.
I don't know. It's hard for me to really say because the GTA 6 is such an ambitious project for them. And I'm sure that they will do. I'm sure they'll do great things.
They have a lot to live up to. I gotta say
Yeah.
that. Like,
It's almost
flop on this, dude. It's like
it's almost the second version of Star Citizen. Let's be honest. It's the biggest game, right? It's gonna.
Yeah.
One thing that Rockstar has always done, I would say, like exceptionally well, and something that they lead in is world building. So to answer your question, as far as like what we, what we're excited for, I think that was the basis of the question. The map, like
for sure.
Rockstar has always been leading in their map designs, in my opinion. I don't think many games come close to it. They also have a reputation of their maps being some of the biggest in gaming history at the time of their release.
Yeah.
So yeah, the map. I'm very, very, very interested to see what that map looks like in game. 100%.
I think
Especially the size. Like, fuck.
yes. After playing RDR2, scale is very high up my list for games now. It's crazy that like one feature from one game. And it's not even content, but it is content. But not, what I mean, not actual like. It's like scale. I don't want to ride from Saint Denis to Coulter in like 2 minutes. I want to have to stop in Valentine. Maybe I gotta fill up water and go find a camp to like. Well, you know what I mean. I want the journey, I guess, right? Although one thing that I do hope that
that's for sure part of it. Good story, good map.
Yeah, one thing I do hope that they sort out, and like Mafia, you all know this playing 5M right now. See if ghost cars are a thing in fucking GTA 6, and I'm doing 150 down the freeway, and a car spawns in front of me, right, and my car blows up. I'm gonna fucking freak out.
Yeah, I mean that's one sync issue again in 5M with this shit, but the NPCs in 5M or GTA in general are 100% set up to fucking swerve in front of you.
Oh, 100%.
Have you seen those videos where the guy's like tapping his screen with the finger pointer? And it's all over TikTok.
But I just hate, like, it even happens in Saint Denis, right? I'll be riding along, right, and you've taken the trams out again, which is sad but also good. But like I've been riding down like Saint-Denis, and then the tram has spawned on top of my head. Horse is dead.
Yeah.
I'm fucking ragdolling through the floor. You know, it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, much like they did with Red Dead Redemption 2, when they start a new game, the first thing that they do, they're kind of like Iron Man in this regard, is they learn. I want to say that they learn from their mistakes, but I don't think that we're going to have those issues. At least not to the extent that we've experienced them through our role play careers in 5M. Well, while one thing was progressing in Red M now, um, I just simply because I truly believe they've started that they've recreated the engine, implemented improvements to the engine, and this is all like all the networking stuff that were issues in 5M and are issues in Red M are not even going to be a factor because the actual fucking team working on this game, it has access to the source code. They can change whatever they want, which is not, you know, and they're likely very skilled engineers and have been working on many Rockstar projects and are familiar with the engine. I just don't foresee us having that many issues with networked props, entities, vehicles. I think that they will do a pretty decent job. They should. They have the source code.
yeah,
If they don't, that would be a ball drop.
yeah.
So
So what do you think then? So next year console, year after PC, and then 20, 28, 29 then for RP GTA 6.
I don't know.
it's hard to until we know how exactly they're doing the community servers and how they're allowing the third party scripts to be implemented. We can't really say because I can if the way that we develop doesn't change between 5 and 6, like we can still use the same language, we can still Lua, we can still use that language, we can code in it, we can make scripts, we can add them right in the server. The processes is the exact same. You probably won't be waiting another year after the PC release to see a GRX server. If there's a lot of drastic changes, then I'm sure that will extend the time as we have to learn these new systems. But um, it's hard to give an estimate that far out, especially with how like closed-lipped Rockstar is.
Yeah. Right. I've got. We'll wrap it up here soon. I've got a couple of questions people have DM'd me. We'll just quick answers because Benji and I started this. It was like we'll talk for about an hour. It's been 2 hours already. They're always 2 hours.
We got a lot to talk about, so
Yeah. Okay. Here's one. Now we had the Braithwaites. We had the idea of stories, right? Like these player driven like specialty gangs, I guess you could maybe look at it like that, like specialty stories. Are they going to continue? Are they going to come back? The Braithwaite sort of fizzled out. Guarma has been the rumor, I guess, from like the player side of things that something might kick off in Guarma.
The Braithwaite one was the first one that I officially did, and then we had the Mad Scientist too, which I'm not quite sure how that one went. I'd have to check with Silas, but it was kind of like a live and learn thing for me on how we should do it moving forward. I offered a lot of the spots to people as part-time characters, whereas as we got into it, I kind of realized that
they need to be full time.
Yeah,
you need to prioritize.
to drive the story for sure, and I also just need to make sure it's clear on certain things. Like some of the people there seem to expect that they were just going to be handed money because they were the Braithwaites and they needed to RP being rich. When in reality, you can RP being rich with $1. You just don't show anybody the dollar.
Yeah.
But again, it was kind of a live and learn experience that I don't have the time to manage it either. A lot of the people seem to rely on me to push the story forward, where I needed them to be the person doing that. Right, that's the whole reason I wanted it to go. So I think next time we go about it, it'll happen again. But I want to have like a whole team put together that is quote unquote like the story team that pushes that whole narrative for these groups, so that I can focus with Simon on the dev work and shit.
I think from a player point of view, right? Like, yes, it's great that like somebody gets to play this, but you could never run into them because they were on their like quote unquote main, right? Like
Hard to-
I think like the emphasis on look, for example, say it was the Greys, right? You know, Caliga. I think you'd be like, okay, you have to prioritize this character over, you know, whatever else you're playing. Not down to do that.
Yeah.
Don't apply, right?
Yeah, and for sure, I think that's how it should go next time.
Yeah, those roles will definitely be. We have roles that are now, you know, side characters. Like there's what do we call them? I can never remember the name. We need to come up with a better name for them. The RP jobs type thing, like EP and all that. Patrol.
Oh yeah, this is kind of like
What do we call those? That's kind of like how we were classifying like the Braithwaite store, how it was kind of set up to work, and it just doesn't. Those bigger storylines, the objective is to provide lore to the world to a degree, and like actions that, you know, it's hard to explain. It's definitely
Yeah.
it's harder to execute, but I'm definitely in the same boat as Mafia. Like when we have those bigger storylines and all that, they definitely need to be played by people who are going to dedicate themselves to that role for the extent that they are in it.
Yeah. So we're
for-
still
for
there's
how-
there's still going to be a
however long
thing.
the story lasts.
There's still going to be a thing. And there's still going to, you know, happen eventually, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably.
I get like we've said, our priority is role play. We want to do whatever we can do to generate that in the server and you know help people create good stories. We're absolutely gonna continue to do for sure.
Yeah, because one of the things from the Braithwaites was like the drama of like the Braithwaites charging for apples. You know, like I'm pretty sure the Darnells went down grabbing apples and got told off by them. You know, it's small things like
Yeah. Well, I mean, no shade
even
to
them getting
them, but
caught
I mean,
growing
it
the fruit and
sucks when
stuff too.
it happens. It sucks when it happens to you know you, right? When you're not when the shoe's on the other foot, right? I mean, just say it. You know, that obviously it's on that land, so the extortion, but for sure, we definitely want to continue doing stuff like that. 100%. Adds so much to the world, and like I said earlier, the world building is a big part of these types of games.
yeah,
Best thing about those roles too, right? It brought a lot of people out of their element, right? A lot of people involved hadn't tried something like that before, where they kind of came together with a random group of people and just came into like a character that they didn't essentially plan themselves. So it's a really good opportunity for people to learn like improv role play and just how to flow with, maybe a scenario or RP that they didn't essentially plan themselves.
yeah, true. Because you're
Right, 'cause
you're
it's
playing like a
not-
son or a daughter. You should know your mother, your father, your brothers. You know, you're instantly into like you know this person. Act like you know this person.
Well,
Right?
you're forcing people into a care, not forcing people, the people who want to you force when
Play
you
the
accept a role like that, you're being forced to actually play a character, because the character that you're playing is, and a lot of times, nothing like you. And like yes, that's, I mean, that's, I agree, that's absolutely one of the best parts about those storylines, is getting people who out of their element, and it definitely, in my opinion, it teaches people how to uh go with the flow, organic role play, and you know, like Mafia said, be, you know, come up with stuff on the fly, the flow.
Yeah.
It's a good learning tool for sure.
All right. Okay. Good. Boats. A lot of drama with boats right now, where like you know, boats almost feel like they're at a point where the like right now, if I want to get my canoe out, I got a ticket because it's going to cost me $250. Otherwise, is the boat script?
What?
What?
Boats. There's an issue with boats, right? Where
We neither of us know what you're
Only,
talking
yeah,
about.
Oh.
like the only time it charges you for a boat is if you transfer your boat.
I think if
So
I
that's
want,
what
if I
it
think
should charge you
what
for. So I mean, if nobody's reported any issue about
oh okay.
boats
Maybe
costing money,
maybe
I
I'll
mean,
talk
it's
to you
supposed-
about this one off. I'll just let you know.
Yeah.
It's going to cost me $250 to pull out $100 canoe.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in
Uh,
Blackwater and your canoe's in Saint Denis, yeah, it costs you $250 to transfer your boat, and that came in because people were loading their canoes with gems in Guarma and then just transporting them for free as storage units. So thanks to those
which
people, they
again is
ruined it
why
for everybody.
we don't allow transferring of horses, wagons, anything. That's a very good example of why we don't do that. So
Yeah, because people would be shipping those back and forth through the stables too.
I will look into that. We obviously, if there's an issue, we want to make sure it's resolved
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
quickly. But like Mafia clarified, if it's at a location, you store it at a location and you go back, and that's not intended. That is a
The only
bug.
boat issue I'm aware of is the camera one. Sometimes that happens for canoes. They're like you basically don't see the dock and you see Play-Doh land somewhere else.
Oh yeah, yeah, Roblox. Yeah, yeah. I think the issue with boats also is like storage is completely fucked on them. Is that not another thing?
Yeah, well, it's an escrow locked script, so I'm gonna be honest, we'll just probably rebuild our own because it's one of those things that is a cool
Hmm.
script that they could build kind of like the wagons, but at the end of the day, it's probably something me and Simmons could just make, and we don't have to deal with shit being locked and not editable.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
I know you don't really want to do time frames and stuff like that there, but time frame on the Crim update.
Well, I've been super busy with the 5M side. It's kind of sizzling out. I'm caught up on that now. So this week I'm gonna be over here again, getting busy with Simmons. So
Okay.
no date yet, but what's today? I don't want to say a date or a
It's
time
16.
quite
No,
yet just 'cause
yeah.
it just puts pressure on us. But it'll be hopefully for July or early July. So but we'll see.
Yeah, it's hard to put because we might get in there and we
I have to
might
dive
decide.
into way more than we thought. So
Well, and that, and we could also decide that we want to add more features, more mechanics, whatever the case is. It's hard to say. I I just know it's one of our highest priorities on top of all the quality of life stuff and all that other shit. It's up
Yeah.
there, and it's something that we are actively working on. Um, in a sense, right now, me and Mafia, the last few weeks have been discussing how exactly we want to approach it, both in character and OOC, because there has to be story leading up to why Alma disappears, all that shit. And we want to make sure it's done right, all of it, before we release it. We don't want to repeat of releasing half broken things and all that. So we're gonna. It is a priority, and we are working on it.
A question that I got a couple of times was, and like the short version is, are you guys happy with the current clothing system?
No. Well, yes, but no.
Like I think it's
I
very
don't have
good
any.
apart from the issues with it, right? I think that's the
So I mean, the easy way to put it is it's not user friendly or easy for new users to get the hang of. A lot of people come in and they expect that like, hey, here's a jacket I want to wear. It should work with this undershirt or this vest or
yeah.
why does it poke through right when it's because there's 12,000 items that were taken from NPCs and the NPCs wear set clothing. You know what I mean? Like one jacket that goes with that vest and that tie, whereas it doesn't work with another one. So
Is
that's
it?
totally out of our hands, and I guarantee if we were to switch back to the other system, as soon as we did, the fucking community or the chat would be like, "Yo, let's go back to the other one because now we don't have 12,000 extra fucking clothing items." So it's a very odd spot for us to find a happy medium.
I like it, and I think the general consensus is people do like it. I don't
The
like.
style has been insane. Like just to see everybody have like look
Yes.
so unique this go around has been amazing in my
and
opinion.
and that's definitely one of the positives. I've talked about this with Mafia a lot and all that, and for the longest time, we when colorways came out for for the clothing store and all that, and we switched to that script, and red players think that they want to have the mechanical freedom, but they ultimately don't. And the clothing store is a pretty good example of that. We can provide every single piece of clothing in this game, which we have, and there will still be issues with it because of how Redem works currently.
Yeah.
And like Mafia said, it's ultimately out of our hands because We have, I mean, the script we have open source and we've worked on it and we fixed things in it, but even the developer who wrote it can't really improve it past this point because of the issues just with the core Red M. That's just the biggest issue and biggest
it is what it is type of thing,
stoppage
right?
for all of us. Yeah, it's a bit rough in that regard for sure. The only thing I'll say is the old clothing store, and I talked about this briefly in feedback. We definitely had a lot more working features with it, but it had its own issues that people thought were annoying as shit. And the people who are saying go back to it, specifically what I'm talking about in this feedback thread, they either didn't experience those problems or don't remember how annoying they were, right? So we have to give some things up to take on these new systems. For instance, like the items as clothing, like that would just be an insanely ridiculous
every piece of
thing to
clothing
try to
now would be
implement
crazy.
into
Yeah.
this. I just don't know how it would even be plausible to do. For example,
I think from my point of view, right, one thing that I would like, I don't know whether you can add it or not, but instead of like grabbing the slider and going up and then clicking the last one or two, any way to just type in I want like legs number 17, fucking jacket 347, any way to like,
yeah, I can add UI elements that do that. That's a
because
reasonable request.
because currently with the trousers that Carter wears, if I take his trousers off, I have to use legs 115. His cock's hanging out. So you know what I mean? Like it would just be
Fucking
nice.
let her dangle.
Well, big boy. Just
Oh,
just
thanks for clarifying.
but you know what I mean? Like if I could just like bang type in like 37 on the legs, 55 on the upper body, fucking hat 4, you know what I mean? Good quality.
Yeah,
good,
I hear you there.
Yeah. All right.
I
There
hear
you
you
go.
there.
Chat. There you go. Chat. I fixed clothing. You can thank me later on.
Yeah, and that is absolutely a reasonable request, and should not be too hard to add some sort of UI element. That said, I haven't looked into it yet, so we'll see. But I will do everything in my power to add something like that.
Yeah. Anything. Anything for the Civ side of things with 4.0, there's definitely a lot more Civ oriented players, right? Anything aimed at catered at them in the works?
Yeah, there was a thread, and I think it was discussed on your stream.
Oh, the wagon.
Having some sort of like something like that for the Civs to do, and I think that's something that Mafia and I are on board with.
Yeah, 100%.
And we have every intention of adding something again like that. I'm sure it will differ in many ways from the initial suggestion, and in many ways it will be exactly like the initial suggestion. All the good things,
Yeah,
will be like it. But ultimately, again, our goal is to flesh out all of our systems, crim, law, civilian, and add things for each and every single one of them to do. We want the world to be filled with activities. We don't, we want people to have options in what they're doing. And, again, what the world can be, the size of the United States and have zero content or not enough. And that's where the issue is lies the issue. That's
Yeah.
the issue. So, so yeah, absolutely. Me and Mafia have also played around with the idea of bringing some of the civilian jobs back, although there will be some huge differences in how those jobs are accepted and where they're done and all that. And what I mean is like the electrician job in Blackwater, like there's a place for those jobs in Red M, but with how they were being used, which is partially because of how they were written, it just didn't work out. It wasn't a part of the vision that we're trying to show here in Goldrush.
and I guess you guys also have to think about like, how do you make it a civilian job and not just something? Oh, my gang isn't around. I'm Billy Badass and I have like the longest criminal record. How do you stop me from doing it? If that's what you want, you know what I mean? Like,
We'd have to have a rep system at that point that would block them
Right.
if they were negative or criminal or something.
Right, and that's more than likely the direction we are going to go when we do the criminal rewrite, because there's no other way to do it, unless we lock it to specific jobs, which is not something that we want to do.
Yeah.
The rep based way is definitely rep. We call it rep, but it would be more so like a number you never see.
Oh yeah,
You know, it would
it's like
be,
as soon as you see numbers, because I think in
yeah.
3.0 for a while, you could see your rep with Mama, right? And then people knew that this job gave that, and
Yeah, they
yeah.
can just mimic it. The rep
Yeah.
will not be. The rep will not be. It'll be important, but it won't be like. It's going to be a secondary mechanic to all of the other mechanics in the server, and how they.
Yeah.
And the only thing, its only job is to determine how the scripts interact with it. If they have too low of a rep, then the NPC that is giving you the wagon delivery mission probably is not going to give it to you, because the likelihood that you end up with, the criminal ends up stealing the wagon, realistically, is high. Why the fuck would they deliver it when they can just take it and sell it, right? So, um, that's yeah, the rep system is likely how we're going to manage that, and um, keep players who are already at the the last step of their criminal journey, the people who are robbing the interior banks and all that. All that's how we're going to keep them off of that, more than likely.
Now this is a weird one because it's from 3.0. What happened to the canning factory, the food canning factory? Because I remember back in 3.0 Mafia, you were streaming, you were in Valentine, you went in and you were like RPing getting food, and you asked like, is it fresh? Do you remember this here? And then like literally 2 days later, you're like, yeah, fucking food decay's coming in. Whatever happened to the canning factory from 3.0? It was in the trailer, it sat there for a while.
So when we started, or when we were doing 4.0 this go around, we had a big chat about that, and just the essential bottleneck that it could cause for the entire community.
The economy.
Or economy rather. Because
Yeah.
every saloon would rely on, instead of you chopping tomatoes in the prep room, you would have to have a can of sliced tomatoes or beans or whatever it may be, right? So it just creates this entire chain that if somebody fucked around and dipped out or didn't fulfill, it would
Yeah.
just cripple the entire food chain, which could be interesting for RP. But
Well, there was like a couple of storms in 3.0 where there was no animals to hunt, so everyone was starving.
yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so it just the bottleneck and the severity on like people being alive or dead, right?
It's too
Yeah, just
complicated
a
of
big
a
job to
system.
integrate, so we just didn't
Yeah.
go with it or didn't pull trigger. But
It touches
like I
too
said,
many things. It's just
if we had a group though that was dedicated to it, that we knew would commit to it for the long haul, it could maybe happen. But like I said, it touches so many systems that it would have to be a committed thing. Kind of like the oil industry.
Oh yeah, look, I already stock Carter up on
It-
oil
it-
because it's fucking impossible to get.
That's added to
Yeah,
the
it would-
general story for Restart, actually.
it would be almost like having seeds get sold from players, and that's the only way to like obtain them. You know, if this player that sells the seeds disappears, or drama happens, and community members leave, they're not. If they stay, if they don't stay, then nobody is eating anything. It's it's a major part of the economy, and all of that. When we have to make those decisions, that's honestly the biggest factor when we make those types of decisions, is how does this affect the economy, and is this overall a good addition to the economy more than it is a detriment. And ultimately, the canning stuff was more of a detriment than it was a contribution.
Let me see. Trying to get one that's not stupid. Hold on. Anything, anything job wise, or anything that you guys want to add that you haven't added yet, as in like, you said about bringing civilian jobs back, so that maybe cancels a few things out. But like the wagon job. Remember the stagecoach job? Is there any jobs that you
The
think?
robbery.
No. The I guess like the RDR version of Taxi, right? You had the stagecoach.
Oh, I mean,
Mm,
But as
like the reason
but
that
not as a
specific
not
thing
a
failed was because people just got off
didn't
on a
use it.
fucking local horse and just not call it taxi. You know, we in 5M you can make all car doors locked by default, so like
Yeah.
no players can open them, forcing people to use the taxi system because they don't have lockpicks, they don't have a gun, they have no way to jack somebody's ride. So the alternative is walk, find a
Yeah.
bike, or call a taxi. And the same thing is not necessarily a problem in Red Dead because you can go out to one of the random fucking dirt roads and find an NPC and just steal their horse.
Yeah.
So
Somebody will just literally run from Valentine Roads.
yeah, that too. So I don't think we'll spend much time on that system specifically, though, if at all. I don't think we'll see that specific system, at least not in the same way that it was um,
Okay.
set up before. We might have it set up and where you can do NPCs, and maybe players. But see, again, it's just that requires time, and for a system that just isn't going to be utilized all that much, quite frankly, we will we're going to focus our time on the systems that people are actually going to interact with and use.
Okay, we'll make this the last one. Obviously, Crim's getting an update. Anything on the horizon that Mafia might like? He's like anything on the horizon for law, whether it's like mechanical or quality of life, and the doctor's office. Anything coming their way?
Um, so definitely in the aspect of quality of life, and we are open to adding more content um, for all jobs, but that is where we need help to a degree, and that's why the suggestions and feedback, in my opinion, is invaluable. If you have a suggestion or feedback, it should go in there. Um, it's hard. It's sometimes hard to come up with all the ideas, and I rely heavily on the community personally to give me those ideas because I'm unfortunately not as creatively inclined as some. And it's hard when there's 18,000 different things going on to try to conceptualize a whole nother system for an existing job. But every job will see some facet of improvement in quality of life, bug fixes, and I'm sure without a doubt there will be more content for both law and doctors and the rest of the server, civilian, crim, all that.
One thing that I sort of thought about with the doctors was, if I get the cold, I can pass it on. Like a sickness mechanic, right? Linked into cleanliness or something like that there. But I'm not saying the doctors have to track down patient zero, but Valentine could have like a herpes outbreak, right? You know what I
There's
mean?
no curing that.
That's good.
But you know what I mean, like sickness, actual sickness being a thing.
We've had that before. We've had
I
transmitted
got sick at the
sicknesses in
orange fucking
3.0.
trees last year. I got treated for like 2 hours. I was just puking.
Oh,
Yeah,
the orange trees, yeah. Too much vitamin C.
We've had concept like systems like that, and they work exactly how you described. Like somebody can be sick, and if they're not treated, then they can pass it on. The problem is that I think what we ran into and why we just decided that we were not going to implement it is mainly because people were just being fucking annoying with it. Like they would purposely not seek
Oh yeah,
attention,
yeah.
and they would purposely go and say, you go up to someone, cough all over them, and you know, and that's where it becomes kind of like it's somewhat of it's an inconvenience, just at certain times, and that's fine. But when you walk into Valentine because you need to get something from the storage, and somebody who is a min maxer that spent the last 7 hours in the fucking mines, they have, they got some sort of illness going on and
Black
you
lung.
contract it. It's like, man, and obviously the people who are being, are doing it with ill will, ill intentions, they're never going to get treated and they're just going to keep infecting people. And it's just never ending fucking nonsense. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be open to bringing something like that back. I don't recall it being too much of a problem. And it was very rare that you got an illness transmitted by another person. It happened. It just didn't happen often. We had the chances set pretty low.
Another thing that I got asked for by a doctor was, and it sort of like plays into like every aspect of the game. So whenever you break a bone, right, is there any chance of like an upper body break that affects your aiming? Say, like you've broken an arm, your aiming's fucked. You have a lower body break, which obviously your leg falling over, can't run, whatever. Is that possible, or because right now, like you know, you fall and break something, it doesn't matter, right? Your character's just gonna flop over. But if you had like an upper body break, you know what I'm trying to say, like split the body in two. You break an arm, your aim's fucked, or you can't pull out a long arm, or and then you've got
I think on like from a developer standpoint, I mean, it's definitely doable.
Be
The
doable. You
way
just essentially, if you break your arm, we'd have to block the key, but I don't know how we'd do it because you'd have
or
to
make it
block.
slower, or it adds a lot of like technical questions that we don't actually know the answer to right now. I know for a fact that I can tell you for a fact that it's possible. The way that the system works is like when you get shot, there's a chance that or like if you fall or get shot, there's a chance that you break a bone. And those bones are unique. Like depending on where you get shot, that determines what bone is actually broken.
yeah,
So there's the game engine already has functions to determine what body part is hit and has taken damage. It's the difficulty comes into question to where how do we implement this mechanically to where one, it's not detrimental to the players, and two, where it makes sense and is realistic. um and it's not just a filler mechanic or whatever the case maybe. It's definitely plausible. And partially it's already halfway there. It's just all about the implementation of those new mechanics.
but it's not something you oppose. You think like if you could, you
Mhm.
think it would be something you'd want to add in?
Yeah, we can, and I think that's a great idea. I feel like it would definitely be something that I would need to speak with some doctors about and our staff doctors and see what they think the best way to implement it is so that it's not, again, disruptive or anything like that. Up until recently in 4.0, and it was a thing in 3.0, we were using the same medical script. If you got shot, you would start bleeding, and when you were bleeding, you couldn't sprint, for example. That's one of the issues that players took with the system. So it's all a balance about what the players are willing to like actually withstand, like what, like if they're we just have to, it's just about it, again, it's just about implementing it. And I'm open to it for sure. I think that that's something that we can definitely do to make the doctors have a little bit more to do, and it could be a little bit more random, interesting, that type of thing.
Yeah. All right. Last one, Mafia. Anything you want to leak before we call it quits? He's hitting his bong again because he's not responding.
Yeah, probably. Or reading a ticket. Work never stops here. Oh, his Go XLR crashed.
Simmons, anything you want to leak because he can't say shit right now? The floor is
Not
yours.
necessarily leak. Mafia has pretty much already quote leaked everything, and as he said earlier, we try to be very transparent whenever we possibly can in regards to development or our plans, and and all of that. We you know we we try our best, and I can say with absolute certainty we remain dedicated to providing the best possible quality role play in our server and the best scripts, the most unique. Um, we don't want to be. We've never wanted to be a copy paste server where we want to do everything ourselves and have our own systems. And we're going to be working hard on that the next couple of months, and getting those quality of life updates out, fixing issues that were completely ignored, and um, just overall improving just everything about both the server and the community. Is that's what we're focused on, and we're very focused on it. Um, uh, Not really content leak, but a lot of our remaining staff, our admins, they have shown interest in you know assisting in development work, so they will be likely joining us on the development side of things to some extent.
Yeah, I was going
Learning.
when I was going to finish there. I'll skip ahead of this here. I was going to say like
Mhm.
if anybody is a budding like developer in the in the community, like, do you want them to reach out to you, like ticket and be like, I do this, this, and this. Is it any value to you or?
Yeah, it definitely is a value. And, we've had community members in the past who have been very knowledgeable, and have personally assisted me in resolving some issues, or I've learned things, is what I'm saying. So like absolutely, if anybody has the technical skills, know how, all of that, like, and they want to contribute to this project, the community, yes, you can absolutely reach out. And we can go from there. Um, let's see if he
Is
comes back.
yeah.
I think he restarted the computer.
Is there anything is there anything you've been looking for, like a certain language? Like you dev boys and
No,
your forward slash backslashes.
not necessarily. See, the thing about being a developer is if you're competent with one language, you can, for the most part, pick up another relatively well. There's differences, obviously, and different practices, and but as far as what we use for the actual server, we develop in Lua. There's sometimes some JavaScript, for the UIs. So Lua, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, those languages are all relevant to what we do here. Um, both on an in character or in a server perspective, and the content perspective, and a external factor like the bots. Like all of our Discord bots are JavaScript and all of that. So, but yeah, I mean, if they have the desire to assist, and the desire to contribute to the community, the desire to learn, if they don't know how to code in these languages, then yeah, absolutely reach out. We will we'll definitely respond. I obviously can't promise anything to anybody, um, but that's we're looking for help. That's for sure. We will definitely take anybody who wants to assist, and we will definitely
Yeah,
talk to them.
perfect. Right, I think we'll call it there. Mafia's blowing up his PC.
Yeah, it happens every so often. Kind of
Oh,
like the he gets a new computer like every year. He thinks that it's dying on him. I'm not sure what happened, but he definitely had to restart. So, but
all right.
but yeah, for sure.
Right. Well, look, I appreciate you both being on. Thanks for answering the questions, and yeah, we'll see what happens over the next couple months.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe for sure, maybe we can do something like this in the future once some time has progressed. And I sometimes do dev streams. I find that very valuable to the community, just so that they can kind of like a state of the game kind of thing, where they can interact with directly with a developer, and ask questions, that type of thing. But yeah, I'm sure we would be more than happy to revisit podcasts in the future once we get some of this some of this content out.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Right, we'll leave it there. Matt Simmons, and then I'll finish up the speech here to the people. But look, appreciate it as
Mafia's
always.
back.
Oh, is he back? Oh,
Yeah. Sorry about that. But yeah.
Any final words, Mafia? Or
No. Other than look forward to the update as always, right? It's always exciting when that stuff drops. So
yeah. Oh, anything extra you want to leak before we call it quits?
no, I'll leave it for a surprise.
All right,
You
all
got enough out of me today.
right. All right, guys. Look, appreciate your time. Yeah, we'll leave it there.
All right, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you guys
Thank you,
later.
chat. Thank you, chat. Much
Yeah, thanks,
love.
Jeff.
Yeah,
Have a good day, guys.
go do some fucking work.
I'm gonna go smoke a
See.
fat bowl is what I'm gonna go do real quick. So, and then we will get some work done.
Okay, sounds good. All right, guys.
See you
Appreciate
guys.
it. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Right, chat. We will we'll leave it there. There you go. I will get this up on YouTube, get a link in the Discord. Next episode, right? We're on episode 8. Well, the next episode is going to be number 8. Next episode is going to be the busiest blacksmith in the whole of the Commonwealth, Miss Rosie. I'm going to have a chat with her, see what she's all about. But yeah, she's next on my list. A few other people that I want to get a hold of as well. I'll reach out to them, and there you go. We'll go with that. Appreciate it, guys. Take it easy.